Welcome back to Straight Facts. It's Monday morning. Hit the like and the share button. The panel will be with you very, very shortly indeed. I've got an action-packed show for you today, so stay with us. We're looking back at Arsenal's penalty robbery that, in fairness, has been called out by everybody in the game, plus some massive shockers from the PGMOL over the weekend. We're taking a look at Gary Neville's comments about the robotic nature of football. We have to look at that. Is he right? And as my first guest, Judge Mo, joins me on the show, Gary Neville talking about the robotic nature of football. Who is to blame for this? Is it the modern young managers? Is it the influence of Pep Guardiola? Or are we just in the midst of what is a really poor season from an entertainment perspective? We've got to talk about Chelsea dropping points again. Their current trajectory is to finish 7th in the league table. And look, the Manchester derby happened yesterday. There's lots to unpack, but I want to speak about Phil Foden on the show, the heir to the throne of Kevin De Bruyne, the heir to the throne. Has he lived up to the expectation? All that and much more. We've got Potsy coming on, who's Sam joining us later as well. But morning, Mo, how are you, my friend?
Everything is good. Everything is great. I had a great derby yesterday, full of goals, phenomenal brand of football. Everyone is absolutely explosive on the pitch. It was great to watch. It was absolutely great to watch. I think the best thing about this game was the chants about Phil Foden in the stadium. I think that is the highlight of the game.
On that, right? On a real level, Pep Guardiola has called those chants out. Pep Guardiola has said that he hasn't blamed Man United Football Club. He's blamed the individual fans, but he has essentially said that it shows a lack of class and it's horrible. What do you make of that?
No, football is about tribalism. Football is about rivals and everything. And football fans have done this for years, and everyone has enjoyed it. Everyone is entertained. Pep Guardiola is a crybaby as usual when he doesn't win, sore loser. But that's the reality. And the majority of coaches are sore losers, but for him to not win against Man United and to have that flat performance, I think he's deflecting from his own team's performance, from how bad they were, from how he was called out by his own fans everywhere about the approach of the game, about the lineup. And again, he's trying, to be honest with you, he's so protective of Phil Foden. He doesn't realize that I think he's destroying the kid. The kid needs a little bit of criticism from him, from the coach. Like, we have seen great coaches like Jose Mourinho, like Alex Ferguson, there's a lot of Arrigo Sacchi used to call out his players, used to say that you haven't performed. Mourinho used to do the same. And Pep Guardiola is just a crybaby, to be honest, about this. Let the kid, and by the way, Phil Foden is not a kid anymore. He's 24 going 25 within less than a year. So he shouldn't be protected. He should be in his prime. And if you aren't going to be chanted about or against in a Manchester derby, one of the most heated derbies lately, when? Well, we've seen Crystal Palace fans do it against Arsenal. We've seen West Ham fans doing it against Arsenal players. So why is he crying about it? He deflects him, bro. He's a sore loser.
I look at it this way, right? Genuinely, I look at it this way. I think to myself, I want to say it's in the correct way. I personally, now I'm a little bit older, I wouldn't do those chants. But I understand why people do, especially youngsters, right? It's a bit of banter, it's a bit of fun. I don't want it removed from the game, though, just because I wouldn't do it. It's like, I want that kind of comedy removed because I don't find that kind of joke funny, right? I don't kind of believe in that. I think there should be a little bit more, I don't smoke. I think it's bad for you. But do I actually want it banned? I feel like people deserve a little bit of sovereignty, or I'll make my own decision as to whether or not I do that, right? But the bit that gets to me about this is, for years, I have seen and heard City fans sing songs about Munich, as an example. And I'm not saying it's all City fans. I'm not saying it's the majority of City fans. But I haven't heard Pep Guardiola call it out as an example. I've heard them sing horrible songs about our players, and I've never heard Pep Guardiola call it out. So I'm just someone that thinks this. By the way, I wouldn't do those chants, but I'm not calling anybody else out I leave it alone. Does that make sense? If you're going to start calling out this chant because it upset you because it's Phil Foden, well, you've got to now have a backbone and call out lots of clubs that do it and your own fans when they say or do things that are overly offensive, and that's the bit that's stuck in my throat a little bit. It's like, okay, call out Man United fans for what you think is a horrible, disrespectful song that lacks respect. But you've got to have that same energy for your own supporters on a regular basis moving forward, because I think there's a percentage of all fan bases that will sing derogatory songs about rival players and opponents. It's the way it is. And look, Man United have had some of the worst songs in history sung about us when it comes to the Munich air disaster. Liverpool, by the way, some of the most horrendous songs sung about them connected to Hillsborough. So if I'm going to hear Pep Guardiola kick off and complain and whinge about this, I want to now hear him do it in multiple directions, even when his own fan base does it. My view is he'll be absolutely quiet on that. He was just in a bad mood. And I think what he was doing, he was deflecting. And it brings us on to our first major talking point of the day. I think he was deflecting away from Phil Foden's stinker of a performance yesterday. And that's what it was. Phil Foden, the best way for him to have responded yesterday by Phil Foden would have been for him to, when he had that, by the way, he had Garnacho had the best chance to score at the back post 15 minutes into the game. But let us not pretend for a single second that there wasn't a massive chance for Phil Foden early in the second half. And he absolutely fluffed these lines. And I think that's what Pep's doing massively here. He's, the chants were terrible. The chants were horrible. Now you're deflecting from Phil Foden flopping again. And I have a question around Phil Foden flopping. By the way, morning Sam, morning Potsy. I've got a big question about him. We know KDB is now leaving. Is it time for City to drop the idea and notion that Phil Foden is the heir to his crown? Because remember, I'm a Foden fan, but he was meant to be the heir to David Silva's crown. Didn't do it. KDB is now leaving, and he had the worst season ever. Do they have to look for better than Phil Foden? I'm throwing that out to the panel.
Yes, and they are going to look for better than Phil Foden. Every system in the world, big up Sean, every system in the world, every manager in the world has a machine and then has a cog in the machine. Phil Foden is nothing but a cog in the Pep Guardiola machine and can be replaced like that. There are players at Manchester City who are irreplaceable. Kevin De Bruyne, Rodri, as we saw, even Erling Haaland, very difficult to replace. I do not put Phil Foden in that category at all. I've been very consistent for these last 2 years, 3 years. I think Saka's better than Foden. I think Palmer's performed better than Foden. My problem with Phil Foden is the following. You have had so many opportunities to step up. Whether it was when Kevin De Bruyne is out, whether it was when David Silva left the club, he has had countless opportunities. When Jack Grealish was underperforming, he was played on the wing. When Doku was underperforming, he was played on the other wing. He was given so many chances as a winger, as a number 10, as a midfielder, and I don't see him step up. And I think last season, in my opinion, he shouldn't have won the Premier League Player of the Season. I think it should have been Rodri. I've been very consistent about that. I think Rodri was the best player in the world. I think he deserved to win Ballon d'Or, completely deserved to win Ballon d'Or. And I think he should have been the Player of the Season as well, because he was City's absolutely the best player at Manchester City. But I look at like Phil Foden, and he hasn't stepped up. He really has not stepped up at all, to be honest with you. And David Silva's already playing in like Manchester City Legends games. He was gone like 4 years ago. He can never replace David Silva. He can never replace it. Yeah, but Dan Potts, Man City Legends. Like they're all, like 36, 37, When you see a Liverpool Legends game, they're all like 50, 60, they got white hair and stuff. You see a City Legends game and they're all like, 36, 37.
Where's Sean Goater, man? Where's Sean Goater and Sean Wright-Phillips and all these, man? Do you know what I mean? It's all David Silva and co.
Sean Goater is a legend, then we must end the sport.
Paolo One Shop. Now, look, I agree with Hassan. Look, I don't want to start saying that Phil Foden is a bad player, because he's not. He's clearly a brilliant player. He's not particularly lit it up for his country, and there's a lot of stick that he gets for that, rightly so. Some of that is him being played out of position, but really we've seen him play left and right for Manchester City as well. I'll say this. I think 20 goals and assists in a season is a fairly good season, fairly okay season. Phil Foden's done that once for Manchester City. So he hasn't really been known to be the guy who scores their goals, the guy who creates their chances. And I think Phil Foden has had the pleasure of having everything around him perfect. He's had a perfect manager. He's had perfect players around him. The Kevin De Bruyne's of this world, the David Silvas we've mentioned. Behind him, he's had one of the best, the Ballon d'Or winner. He's had Haaland to feed to, who scores every single goal we pretty much give it to on a plate. So when people compared him to Saka a couple of years ago, they've rightly stopped that now. I think it's because they've realised Saka actually does do a lot more individually. But what they're going to say now is that actually it was a stupid comparison anyway because they don't play in the same position. So by all means, compare Foden, Palmer and Bellingham if you want. But Saka's on the right-hand side doing his thing. The other three are in the middle trying to work out who can play as the 10 for England, right? We can compare those three all you want. If I look at Foden's stats, and I'm not really a stats guy, I'm not really a goals and assists guy, but some people are. Since he's been there, he's got 5 goals and then 2 assists, 9 goals and 5 assists, 9 goals and 5 assists, 11 goals, 5 assists, 19 goals, 8 assists last season, which was where he won Player of the Year. This season, 7 goals, 2 assists. So you don't look at any of those stats and think, wow, they're shambles. But for what he is supposed to be and what he's supposed to represent and how he's supposed to lead Manchester City, I would say those stats are pretty average, if I'm honest with you. I don't think those stats are like, wow, this guy is absolute elite level, one of the best players we're ever going to see. And I've taken some examples last season of when he did bring Manchester City across the line, take the game by the scruff of the neck, but I don't think I've seen it consistently. But one thing is, for real, before I let Mo come in, this is the worst player to come off the back of Player of the Year. This is actually a shambles of a season in comparison to the one he had last season where he gets a player of the season. And people have tried to compare him in the realms of some of the others. I've seen consistent performances from Bukayo Saka for the best part of 5 years now. So I'm not sitting here as an Arsenal fan going, please put some respect on Saka's name. I'm done with that. A lot of people disrespect him. I kind of echo and keep saying it. Everybody wants to shit on Saka as best they can. But for some reason, Foden seems to be getting away with it. Is there credit in the bank? I don't think there is individually. I think there is for the team he plays for because they've done a 4-peat. But really, do you think Foden will be doing what Saka's doing at Arsenal if the roles were reversed? Do you think Foden would have carried Cole Palmer or for Chelsea last season?
No.
I question that. I question it.
I think
if Saka was having a season like Foden is having now, there would be newspaper articles talking about Saka's form.
Their defense is always, but he won 6 league titles and he won the treble. It's the same argument that everyone has for any Pep Guardiola player. Jack Grealish, for example, I think one of the worst 100 millions with Lukaku in the history of the sport. Like the guy have scored like what? We did the stats yesterday on Sam's show. 17 goals in 4 seasons for 100 million pounds as an attacker. That's not a midfielder, bro. Casemiro had the same amount of goals or like 1 goal less from the midfield. And we're talking about, but he won the triple, he won a 4-peat. Foden is a good player, as Dan said, but Foden is never going to be a superstar. What I mean by a superstar is someone that everyone looks to actually drag a team. And I disagree with you completely, Dan, about him dragging Man City last season. And I stated my opinion on this show and others, and more on the show with Terry. Last season, Man City struggled. You remember the 1-6, Foden was there. The only player that was not there, that we all know, the captain of Manchester City, it is Kevin De Bruyne. Manchester City last season, when Kevin De Bruyne came back, went on that run that beat Arsenal run at the end of the season. And statistically, Kevin De Bruyne has contributed in more games since he came back from injury last season than Phil Foden. That proves that the one that dragged him over the line is Kevin De Bruyne in the second half of the season, like he did it before when he come, because Kevin De Bruyne is a man at Man City team that actually we know that he's the odd guy. He's not a system player. It's someone that comes with something out of the ordinary. Phil Foden is turning into, you'll get a dribble every now and then. You'll have a good pass or a good shot, like Eze, but with all due respect to Eze, like Eze, you'll have a brilliant game every now and then. But for him to, if you're a Man City fan, and I guarantee you, Dan, Sam and Terry, there is no Man City fan out there that when City is struggling, they're looking at Foden and saying, bail us out, please. Please bail us out. You know what they do? They look at Kevin De Bruyne, please, Please save us today. No one says, Foden, save me. No one does this.
Do you know what's
I've never
really
seen
interesting?
it.
Do you know what's really interesting about it? I think it opens up a lot of old debates and everything else. It just goes to show that you can be in a brilliant team surrounded by brilliant players, but that doesn't mean you necessarily always get carried, as an example, because he hasn't been carried this year. And I think that his fall off this season has been exposed because of other players fall off.
Mhm.
But this idea that the trophies are why he doesn't get criticized, it just got me thinking. I was thinking back to who in our lifetimes, everyone watching the show. By the way, I want to big up Ty Cunningham. He's gifted out 20 memberships to our viewers today. You absolute legend. And welcome to the United Stand community that have joined us here today. Can everybody please, though, hit the like button and share? So thank you and welcome to one and all. I thought back to a certain other Mancunian who played in the red half of the city called Ryan Giggs. And I think this is a case in point. In the early 2000s, about between sort of 01 and 03, not for that whole period, he went through some bad times, Ryan Giggs. He had some problems with his hamstrings. The Old Trafford crowd booed him for some poor performances. And I remember Richie Keys, Andy Gray, these were the leading pundits at the time, ripping him. I remember the Manchester press ripping him. I remember the kids at school ripping him. My family ripping him. But that was after a man that had already won. I'm hazarding a guess here. What that would have been by then he won 13 Premier Leagues. I think he had about 6 or 7 Premier Leagues. He'd done a treble. He was the first player to be part of a side to do the double, then go on to do a treble. But he was still being criticised. So I get that some people think Phil Foden is being protected because of the trophies. I think Phil Foden is being protected because Man City are just not that big and not that interesting to people. I don't think there is much mileage in the mainstream media for them to do a forensic analysis. And we saw it yesterday. Man United, we weren't great yesterday, but everybody knows the context of our situation the club is in. City are the side chasing a Champions League position. City are the side that dropped £200 million on players in the January to get themselves back into the race for titles and everything else. And they played the last 20 minutes for a draw. Yet there is almost no criticism. What's happened today is Gary Neville has gone down the lines of, robotic football is making the game boring. It's impassionate. I hate seeing it. The players hugging at the end is crazy. Rather than what should have been the main focus yesterday. Man United are 13th, 14th in the league. They've transitioned mid-season. We know they're poor. No one expected much more from us yesterday. We've got no one that scores goals in the teams. We're a team at the beginning of a rebuild, and we are in a mess, and we all know that. But the side that are champions, the side that have the greatest manager of a generation, the manager who's responsible for influencing football into this robotic nature, along with these billion-pound squad, 200 million spent in the summer, and it was turned into a generic conversation that football's just got bad, as opposed to City have really fallen off this year. And for me, City fans can take this as a dig if they want. I think it's because they know people ain't clicking on the videos. People ain't reading the articles. If it's solely criticism of Man City, I don't think enough people care. So what they have to do is they have to drag everybody else into the conversation so they can use Chelsea and United and Arsenal and Liverpool's name alongside them. And I just find it interesting that the same pundits who have lauded Pep for his influence on the game being so amazing are now saying his influence on the game, he said they're bad carbon copies, but therefore it's his influence has led to the game being robotic. When I think a big part of it is City have just had terrible recruitment. Certain players have fallen off, and Pep Guardiola, like yesterday, and I want to shout out all the Man City fans, Patrick, Kel, all of them, who actually called out the fact that Pep got it wrong yesterday. He had no width or pace in his team by the players he chose. He put the old men in midfield against a legless Man United team. And I have seen almost zero call-outs from the mainstream media. And I don't care what he's won, because I remember Fergie, I remember Wenger, I've seen Jose Mourinho, I've seen Antonio Conte, all blasted. So forget, I'm not going to mention Mikel Arteta. I'm not going to mention managers on the way up who haven't won all the major trophies. I have seen legends called out by these pundits when they get it wrong. But why City and Pep Guardiola completely ignored and left alone? My only conclusion can be there isn't the money in it. there isn't the clicks, there isn't the engagement, because there's no other reason. I don't want to hear credit in the bank, because Jose and Conte and Wenger and Fergie and others before them. Go back and watch footage from the early 90s when Cloughey's team were falling off. Cloughey was ridiculed. Cloughey's a legend, but he was ridiculed. I have seen legends of every other club called out. So I don't hear this bullshit. I thought about it this morning.
Bro.
Not because of the trophies. It's because there's no money in calling out Man City. So what do they have to do? Drag the rest of us into it and start moaning about chants. That's all they have. That's all they have.
Can I just say something about the mainstream media? Yesterday, Micah Richards was saying that we're gonna see a better version of Phil Foden when Kevin De Bruyne leaves, and he referred to Phil Foden as a youngster. Phil Foden played with Yaya Toure. Phil Foden played with Yaya Toure. He is 25 years old. 25 years old. The youngster thing is done now. This whole youngster, and he's coming through and he needs time. And by the way, let me just tell all the City fans something. He can't replace Kevin De Bruyne. He can't lace Kevin De Bruyne's boots. He's never ever going to be the next Kevin De Bruyne. Ever. Like, that's never going to happen. Ever in his career. He will never be that type of guy. Kevin De Bruyne has left the Premier League, and a lot of us, even rival fans, including myself, has been nothing but we've been nothing but like giving Kevin De Bruyne his flowers and his respect. Even me, as someone who hates Manchester City, I've done nothing but praise Kevin De Bruyne over this last week when he's announced he's gonna retire. I've said he's a phenomenal player, one of the best Premier League players of all time, one of the best Premier League midfielders of all time. Foden can't become that. It's just complete PR. Yep, it's just complete PR. And the thing is, as well, with this conversation, we have to keep in mind, with everything Terry just said, there's levels to this game. If Arsenal, Liverpool, United are having the season that City are having right now, there will be major, talking points and discussions. And I think just kind of having all this like general conversations and not really looking at Manchester City themselves, because yesterday there was something that people didn't talk about. Kusanov was on the bench. Nico Gonzalez was on the bench. Vitor Reis was on the bench. Savinho was on the bench. Doku was on the bench. No one told him to start all these players. Why didn't you start Savinho on the right? Why didn't you start Nico Gonzalez? So you're telling me Nico Gonzalez can't get into the City midfield? Yes, he can. Why didn't you start Nico Gonzalez instead of Gundogan? Gundogan is like 67 years old. Why don't you just start Nico Gonzalez next time? Why don't you just play people in their correct positions? And I think people always want to know the type of people who do this. Hamza, every time you criticize Pep, he gives you a history lesson. Oh, we won 6 and 7 and all. How we get it? He's amazing. But we're talking about yesterday.
Can I? Yeah.
No, I just want to say very quickly. Sorry, Mark. I'll come to you in a second. Look, to City fans having a pop at me, I got abuse all weekend because I revealed my top 10 Premier League central midfielders of all time, and I have KDB second on that list. Some City fans called me out for not putting him first, but most people called me out for having KDB so high. Right? I David Silva on that list. Yaya Toure's in that list. I praise everything you've done in terms of your achievements at Man City. I'm just calling out the fact, yes, there may be a few articles written, but if you look at the volume here, so you're a City fan, you might see that one article in The Guardian where they criticize, that one article down there on the Daily Mail where they criticize. Every other team would have 10 pieces written about them that the managers followed. You know what would be happening today if it was a Fergie? They'd be going, fucking hell, Fergie today. He didn't beat City, but look, he's been out at Asda and bought Capri Sun. There'd be a weird article about him like that where they're following him around. There is a fundamental difference for me. And it isn't, I don't want to, it's not an attack on City. It's just people have got to be aware of this sometimes. That's why the attention isn't there. There isn't the money in it. And that's a shame, really, because it creates an imbalance. But sorry, Mo, you were going to say something.
Yeah,
also, Arsenal don't have 130 charges.
I'm going to ask a question. I'm going to ask it to Dan Potts, right? I know Dan Potts is a really level-headed, like, in this conversation. He can remove his bias. If Arsenal remove Arteta and get me as a coach in the next 2 years and you fall off, do you think that will be comparable to if City get me as a coach and they fall off for 2 consecutive years? Do you think the talk will be the same, or people just move on and it will only be City fans thinking about their club? Do you think rivals will care?
No, I don't think rivals will care, if I'm honest with you. because it's Manchester City and we all hate them. But I feel like what's your point to that? Are you trying
The point is, when Terry was talking about the media attention, if Liverpool get a bad coach and they fall off for 2-3 years, people will keep talking about them. My point is, because Pep Guardiola is there and he's arguably in contention to the GOAT coach, right, in the history of the sport, everyone is talking about City fall off.
Isn't that
everyone is going to be
criticize him though?
Yeah, but that's the whole point. If there is
I'm
any other coach,
I'm gonna criticize you.
If there is any other, if there is any other coach, if there is any other coach,
I think it's this though, right? It depends on who the pundit is, because for some pundits, my belief is their lifelong ambition is to undo everything that they saw United do in their era, especially if they got hurt by it. And you will probably see this again in another 15 years' time if City continue for another 3 or 4 years winning, Pep leaves, somebody else comes in and keeps winning. You'll see the next generation of pundits after that look to do their best to undo what they've achieved. I think we've seen this consistently over the last 30, 40 years of TV and media. It's about trying to undo what came sort of before it. So there is this element of people that will just keep propping Pep up no matter how bad he does, because he's the opportunity for Fergie to be decrowned. That's what he is. And you'll see people that hate Arsenal will start to do that. When anyone gets close to challenging Thierry Henry for the GOAT status, people that hate Arsenal, unless they're a fanboy of Henry, they'll start to push that narrative hard because it's a chance to take something away from them. We see this all the time where a club's got a great achievement, someone else is close to doing something similar. The rewriting of history to try and undo that is crazy to me. You've seen Liverpool fans do it this season. We've got to try and make Carragher shameless attempt at trying to make the EFL Cup sound better or harder or easier or harder to win than the FA Cup. No one in 70 odd years of football has said that, but this one season where you thought you guys might do a treble, it was being pushed. So I think there's this element of it depends on the agenda that somebody has. But I just think the criticism of City's been nowhere near where it should have been, considering how much they've spent, how far they've fallen, and the fact that these same pundits state that it's the greatest manager ever. He still hasn't found a proper solution this season after spending 200 million. It's crazy. It's definitely goes against him in terms of GOAT conversation. On the Man City United derby yesterday, what did you make of the comments, Potsy, from Gary Neville about the game being boring, the players hugging afterwards, the robotic nature of the game, no one willing to take risks? Do you think that was fair criticism from Neville?
Yeah, I do. I think he's absolutely bang on. And look, last time we were on, Mo, Hassam, myself, we disagreed about the quality of this league, and that it's been poor. And that it's been a great season. I think it's been a horrendously poor season. It's boring. It's done. It's dusted. The league's done. Everyone's down. The winners are there. Yeah, you can get excited if you want for Champions League, if you really want to try and clutch at straws. But let's just be real. It's not going to be, man. It's not going to be. And it's kind of done and dusted. So I think the roboticness is definitely something that's right, because Pep Guardiola, and I don't blame him for this like Mo does, but I do feel like he has found a way. He has been the expert at it. Everybody else has tried to copy it and do a bad job. And now football is about inverted fullbacks, and football is about trying to play a false nine, and football is about X, Y, Z that he's tried to do. Let's play tick-a-tack, or otherwise it's not exciting. Goalkeeper has to be good with their feet, not just their hands. This has all come from Pep Guardiola, who started it and perfected it, and now everybody's tried to copy it. So for me, it has become a little bit robotic, but the lack of quality is there, man. Let me just read to you why I think this currently right now is a bit of a shambles, okay? We all grew up in a similar era. We all definitely are different ages, but we understand the era of football that I'm going to be replicating to, going back to, right? Thierry Henry, Michael Owen, Wayne Rooney, Van Nistelrooy, Robbie Fowler, Shearer, Gerrard, Lampard, Vieira, Giggs, Pires, Bale, Hazard, David Silva. We know the list of them. That's Terry, Rio, Adams, Campbell, Carragher that I'm already reading out. Now let me look at the quality of the last few seasons that we've had. Haaland, Henry, no. Owen or Watkins, Rooney or Isak, Van Nistelrooy or Mateta, Fowler or Solanke, Shearer or Liam Delap, Gerrard or Foden, Lampard or Erdegaard, Vieira or Gravenberch, Giggs, Pires, Bale, Hazard and David Silva, or Mbeumo, Mitoma, Grealish, Diaz and Martinelli, John Terry, Rio Ferdinand, Adams, Campbell or Carragher, or Guehi, Branthwaite, John Stones, and the list goes on. My point is, we are not as good as we used to be. It's just a fact. The talent pool is gone. And that's just in the Premier League, by the way. We're not looking at Europe here. Yeah. When you look at the European quality out there, you go Mbappe, you go Vinny, and then you're already starting to dry up. Yeah. The Mo Salahs and Kevin De Bruyne's are still mentioned. They're in their late 30s because there's nobody else coming through. Bukayo Saka, you mentioned that name, you get laughed at. He's nowhere near. Okay, cool. Who is then? Tell me another name that's coming through that's going to be the next Mo Salah. Tell me the next one. He might not be the level of him, but at least have someone that's half decent to go alongside. The talent pool is gone, people. It is done. Look at the state of it. Yeah, I saw a comparison the other day on Instagram, the 90s and 2000s players to the 2020 onwards, right? It was embarrassing, man. And it was picking up people like Zlatan Ibrahimovic and trying to compare them to Darwin Nunez. It was just embarrassing. It was just like, where has everyone gone? Where has the talent gone? So when Gary Neville says it's robotic and people start to blame Pep, I actually look at that and think, yeah, probably you got a chance at that and the coaching needs to be looked at. But some of the players are just not there anymore, man. The players just aren't there. We've got some quality players, we've got some good players, but I look back and I think, crikey, where the hell has the talent pool gone? Like, we are literally in a golden generation of England, and I believe the squad is probably better now than it was, but the 11 back then was absolutely incredible. That Lampard could hardly get a mention in this. Andy Cole and Ian Wright couldn't even get in the England side because it was that stacked. Now, after Harry Kane, people are scratching, thinking, go on then, Watkins, go for it. I know you're 30, but you're the next best we got. That's it. And then it's Solanke. Come on, man. Like, real talk, the quality is gone, man. It's disappeared. I don't know why. It has.
I disagree with you completely. I'll tell you why I disagree. First of all, you can't pick and choose which game to choose from yesterday because 10th placed Fulham beat the best team in the league 3-2. So that shows that the league is quality and there's quality all around. The reason why this season has been quality is your club, Dan. You're at fault for this, not me, not anyone else in this league. The only thing missing from this season is a title race. Had Arsenal been a bit better, had Arsenal competed for the Premier League title, no one would be making all these silly conversations.
Because we're all crap,
yes.
That's why.
No, that's no. They're not all crap. No, they're not. No, they're not. The teams from 3rd to 10th on any given day can beat any big team in the league. The teams, the Forest, the
relegated with 20 points, not 40 here, Sam?
Say that again.
Why has everyone been relegated with 20 points, not 40?
Okay, but then I can tell you from 15 years ago, Derby County broke the record for how bad they were.
Nearly joined them. Southampton nearly joined them.
And how does that prove? But how does that prove your point?
It's actually the other way around because the rest of the teams, the 3rd to 10, are very strong. The bottom teams, the bottom 3, cannot get any points because the league got stronger. Actually, the gap between Championship and Premier League have increased. That's why the teams that got promoted got relegated. That is why.
Yes.
That is what. Then you have to look at it.
And you know you're comparing players from 20 years ago. Let's compare teams from 10 years ago, right? Swansea, Stoke City, West Bromwich Albion, Newcastle when they were really bad before the money, Sunderland, Villa when they were 17th, just escaped relegation, Hull City, Burnley, QPR. These were the relegated.
But they're the equivalents.
I don't look at any of those teams. 1 second. I don't look at any of those teams and recall one player from them that I was like, whoa, like, yes, Newcastle are 15th, but let me actually go look at like a player from Newcastle to take at my football club. I don't recall once. Like, out of all the teams I mentioned, I don't recall doing any of that.
So you didn't buy anyone from Southampton.
Your club and my club right now.
You didn't buy Henderson from Sunderland. You didn't buy Van Dijk and Mane from Southampton. You didn't buy Robertson from Hull.
We did, but I never mentioned Southampton. So you look at this. You look at the teams
down there.
Yeah, okay. You look at the teams from 3rd to 10th. My club and your club, who are competing for the league, or at the other side of the Premier League, right? Like at the top, we could take players from Forest, from Villa, from Newcastle, from Fulham, from Brighton, from Bournemouth, from Wolves, who are 17th, to make us better. If you're talking about individual talent has changed, and the fact that individually players aren't as good, I can agree with that. But if you're talking about the quality of the league and the competitiveness of the league, I disagree completely.
No, I'm not talking about the competitiveness of the league.
Let me respond. The quality of the league.
Okay. I just want to jump in as the host here for a moment. I think that's where I'm listening to both of you. That's where I'm hearing cross points being made. Potsy's saying that there are not as many individually talented players. You're saying the competitive is still there. I think what Gary Neville is talking about is the game is lacking They're sort of what you would maybe call a rogue player, that player that will just take those risks, that will try something special. There's not, whether it's the system that's stopping that or whether it's the lack of players that have the ability to do that, I think is more the conversation.
Yeah, but I know. I'm about to respond. Here's the thing: the system type of thing. Mo, you get me? He starts trends sometimes. He said this 2 years ago. Pep Guardiola is the reason why there is no individual talent in the world. I want to tell everyone right now, if you want to watch individual talent, the only club that provides individual talent is Real Madrid. And Barcelona have Yamal. Other than that, there is no such thing as individual talent. If the system fails, the players fail. It's as simple as that. That's just the reality of the conversation. Now, the one thing I will say is, I do think Dan Potts are referring to a lot of the players like back in the day based on a nostalgic basis. We need to also keep in mind that there is people who are growing up watching the English Premier League right now, who are 10 years old, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, that Mo Salah is going to be their nostalgia 10 years from now. Kevin De Bruyne is going to be their nostalgia 10 years from now. Rodri is going to be their nostalgia. Van Dijk is going to be their nostalgia. The players that they're watching right now, there are Man United fans who are growing up right now, who are in the age bracket of like 8 years old to 20 years old, who 10 years from now, they're going to refer to Bruno Fernandes as an incredible midfielder that they grew up watching because that becomes their nostalgia. I grew up watching, that's not the point, Terry. I grew up watching that era as well. And some of the players that people bring up and act like they were so unbelievably good, I disagree with that logic. Like when you talk about Carragher, let me just land you guys. Okay. If you talk about Carragher, do I prefer Carragher or Van Dijk? Why do you pick and choose? Why should it be like, you know, whoever, like, oh, Palmer versus Gerrard? Yeah, but that's not fair. Like, I can do the other way around.
I think you're missing the point completely. Yeah, I think you completely missed the point. Dan is not talking about the quality of the team. He's talking about the quality of the players, and I completely agree with him. And I remember my dad never told me that the 80s had more quality than the 90s and the 2000s, because in the 90s and the 2000s we had amazing players playing for a lot of teams, as Dan said. Now, with all due respect, you picked Carragher, but your team was shit. There's the difference. Your team was shit at that time. That is the problem. But Jaap Stam played for Lazio. You know what? Thuram played for Parma. And then Veron went to Man United and then went to Lazio. There was Imar was at Valencia. Riquelme was at Villarreal. With all due respect, these players would be absolutely ballers in this day and age.
I think the problem is
they grew up in this era. They wouldn't be allowed to express themselves that way.
But that's what Terry's point. Then that's what Terry's point.
No, I already agree with that
conversation here. It's trying to work out with, you know, they often say in life, is it like nature? Is it nature or nurture? And I think there's a conversation. Listen, I want to go to the viewers' comments in a minute because it's very important to get the viewers' opinions on this. I will say as well, I thought about this quite a bit last night. I sat there, I had a couple of glasses of wine, and I was trying to watch, I think I had Britain's Got Talent on just for the background, right? And I was thinking about why, because after the game yesterday, I spoke about yesterday's match being a little bit of a poster for it being a bad Premier League season. And what I said in that is, and before Hussam, who's going to defend it because Liverpool winning the league, Liverpool been really good.
That's not why I'm defending it, Terry.
Okay, a bit of a joke.
You always find alternative motive when someone agrees.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that very few Liverpool...
Gerrard 8.
The fact that but you know how I list players.
Worst list in history of Football Terrace.
Yeah, but then there's modern... But the thing is about my list, with Gerrard being 8th, because he didn't deliver in title run-ins on as much as the other players, is that when it comes to the forward...
You're just doing that to protect Scholes.
No, it's not protecting Scholes, because this is where you don't you don't let people finish their sentences.
I just did it to you. See?
Because the thing is, if for instance you then look at my attacker list or my centre back list, your modern day players, the Van Dijks, the Trents, the Salahs are higher up on the list. What I don't do is pick and choose when I use my logic. I will stand by this until the day I die. I don't care who thinks it's wrong. This idea that trophies and what you win doesn't equate to your legendary status is crazy when you're talking about the best of the best and the players that influence those trophies being won. And Gerrard's a prime example, because when we think about the two best and biggest Gerrard moments, it's what he did in your Champions League winning season and what he did in that fucking FA Cup final. The irony is his biggest moments are winning you trophies. But
I thought the slip is the second biggest moment.
Yeah. Away from that conversation,
you watched Juve win 10 titles in a row.
Away from that notion, let's not get sidetracked too much. when it comes to this season, Liverpool have been very good. Okay. I think Newcastle have been good, but only for the second half of the season. Forest have punched well above their weight. What I do think is true is that City, Arsenal, Chelsea, Spurs, Man United, every single one of those clubs has underachieved by its own individual standards of where they sit in football right now. That can't be denied. You throw 5 teams in, and 5 of the biggest teams in the league, supporter-wise, that have underachieved. I actually think league-wise, Villa and Newcastle have turned it on second half of the season. Look, Villa only just got into plus goal difference. I still think Villa haven't been as good as we expected them to be in the league based on last year. And Newcastle, it's the second half of the season that's saving them. And actually, if those teams I mentioned had been more consistent, Newcastle wouldn't have an opportunity of getting back into the top 4 race. So I do understand why people just, I think for me, it's not the robotic football. It isn't even the lack of overall quality players. I just think too many teams have underperformed this season, and the majority of the season's over. There's very little to play for. So when I look back at yesterday's game as a case in point, just like with Arsenal versus Everton, just like Liverpool yesterday, and you didn't like it because you're a Liverpool fan, and like Man United yesterday, for different reasons, they're focused on something else. Arsenal's intensity was lacking because they're thinking about the Madrid game because they're not winning the league. Man United are thinking about Lyon. Beating City yesterday, yes, great for bragging rights, but I understand why players are not going to run themselves into the ground on that Sunday afternoon when they've got to go and play on a Thursday in what is our biggest game of the season. So I think you've got to look at the context of the games and what's going on, at the same time acknowledging that most elements of what you play for in this game, God, the team that should be criticised the most this weekend is City. They're fighting for top 4, and they were awful. Chelsea, we're going to get onto later, they're fighting for top 4. They were awful. Arsenal, Man United, even Liverpool, I just look at it and think, but I think one of the areas that we also forget, I actually think the criticism that we now put on players is also playing a part in people's lack.
But why are you criticizing Arsenal as an example? Because if you cut out this season, like in general, what you're talking about, whether it's the product, whether it's enjoying the football, whether it's like whatever it is, competitiveness, all of these things are under the same bracket, which is the Premier League product. So in the Premier League product now, you've got the relegation battle, you got the title race, you got the top 4 race, you got everyone else in the middle, right? Yep. Everyone else in the middle, check. The top 4 race, right. Check. Relegation battle didn't even happen last year. That's a different reason because of parachute payments, blah, blah, blah. It said, I think that 3 clubs that get promoted next year are also going to get relegated.
Yeah. Okay.
Now,
what's the point?
Title race is not there. Now, all I'm telling you is, if we're talking about better product, right? We're talking about the Premier League being better for the audience. If Arsenal were just 5 points better off this season, just 5 points, 6 points better off this season, and we had the title race, no one would be complaining about the Premier League product.
Okay. But that's exactly what I've just said. But I've criticised Arsenal this season for not doing enough in the summer, for not doing enough in January. Yes, I think they've had, and we're going to get onto PGMO later, they've had a few decisions go against them, but they've had many games that they could have won. They've been criticised. When I mentioned that I didn't criticise Arsenal this weekend, it's in the context of this weekend. I understand why. I mean, Chelsea did it, and I was shocked by it because I actually think making top 4 is better for them because of the financial issues they've got than winning the Conference League. They lacked an intensity, and they rested players ahead of their European game, but they're fighting for something. If Arsenal were 2 points off top, 3 points off top, and they started that team that played against Everton and played with that lack of intensity, I would blast them. But we all know they're not catching Liverpool at this point. And in terms of the game state, imagine the criticism they would get if 2 players pulled hamstrings or one busted his ankle in a crunching tackle trying to win that game ahead of the Real Madrid match. I understand why the lack of intensity was there in that context. But Arsenal, by me, because you've called me out, I've heavily criticised them on multiple match reactions, on multiple podcasts this year for not doing enough. I don't think this is one thing. I don't think it's about a lack of players or just the robotic nature. It's certain teams haven't been good enough this year. But I was just about to say, before we go to the comments, I also think the criticism we give players online is also playing a part, not the biggest part. It's not the biggest. I think people are scared. I think players are scared to make mistakes. And I think it's something that, like, we all consider Klopp to be a winner on this panel, just for the sake of art. We all consider him a winner. Yes. There's a reason that 6 years ago at Liverpool, he brought in psychologists to help the players handle the online criticism they were getting. Now, we may say weak modern day players. They've got to toughen up. But the fact that a winner had to go and bring in a person like that tells you that maybe the online criticism, maybe the standards that we push out there, maybe the way we enact them, maybe the way we behave isn't necessarily good for the development or the continuity. And I think all of these things play a part. But let's go to the comments here, because there've been quite a few super chats that have come in. I don't want to ignore these. This here says, nostalgia is a drug. Modern players are nearly equal. Do you agree with that, Potsy?
I mean, look, I absolutely love football. So, of course, I'm going to have a preference for where I saw Arsenal winning to where I don't see Arsenal winning now. But I don't think any of the examples I gave from old players there were worse than the other players of current Premier League stars. That's what I will say.
Yeah.
And look, I understand where Hassam's coming from. And like other Liverpool fans, he wants us all to say this is unbelievable quality. Liverpool won the league. We are not shitting on Liverpool winning the league. They absolutely deserve to win the league. That's what I will say. But there's a lot of Liverpool fans that think with this conversation is now they're not going to respect us because what they're trying to say we won the league in an easy league and it's shit. No, man, I ain't saying that. Liverpool can go on an unbelievable number of points record this season. They can still get above 90, which is what you need to do, right? So Liverpool have been phenomenal. But unfortunately, the league just hasn't been a good quality this season, in my opinion.
You
but that's
and
just
Terry are completely missing the point. I'm just going to say something for 30 seconds, and then after that, I'm going to mute my mic. You guys are missing the point. This is not about Liverpool winning the league. No one on this panel or in the chat can undermine a league title, no matter how bad or good the league is. That's not the point. I'm looking at the teams that are in mid-table. All of them have fantastic managers and very good players who start for the best teams in the world on their given day. 10 years ago, that did not exist. The mid-table clubs were not as good. They did not have as good managers. Now they have better managers in the mid-table. They've got better player quality in the mid-table. And even the players that you mentioned, nostalgically, like Juan Roman Riquelme, you're never going to get that football back. The reason why you're never going to get that football back is not Pep Guardiola. It's something Terry brought up, which is social media. Because back in the day, even you mentioned Juan Roman Riquelme. Did Juan Roman Riquelme every through pass work? Did every pass he played in behind, was it all accurate? No. He made inaccurate passes. He made inaccurate through balls. He made mistakes even as a number 10. But the reason why, Terry just told you, which I do agree with Terry on that point, which is social media now exists. So every single moment is scrutinized. If Roman Riquelme, I'll give you a final example. If Roman Riquelme came through the City Academy, he would have never been allowed to be Juan Roman Riquelme, even if he had the same exact talent. So and that's the point.
I think it's a combination. It is the way football's played now. But where I think is, it may not even be the player going, I'm not going to try the through balls. I think we're also, all of us, impacted by the way things are spoken about online because we consume it. So maybe how we enjoy football is impacted because there is a percentage of football fans who have been convinced that penalties aren't real goals, that being a good corner taker is not a real attribute in football. We Man United fans got indoctrinated by a poisonous group of people that having players that were good with individual brilliance was a negative on the game. When the actual conversation was, you need a good structure to play in, but you need the individual brilliance. What we lack now is individual brilliance to make the system flourish in terms of the results. The problem is, I think people have been killed. We've had conversations on the Football Terrace with people, and the fans have agreed. If your goal doesn't lead to a win, if that lead doesn't win to winning a trophy, it's meaningless. So, of course, that takes if you believe that, how the fuck are you enjoying 95% of the season? Because 95% of goals and results, you don't know whether they're going to lead to a trophy at the time. But if we start, I think a lot of the way we talk about football is taking the enjoyment out of it somewhat. Liverpool fans were on a match reaction on Wednesday after beating their local rivals. And I'm not going to lie, it was a morgue. Yeah, but I wanted more of a performance. Yeah, but what happens next year? Yeah, but I knew we won it a few weeks ago, so I was watching them thinking it's like they've been sanitized. It was like a what's it called? Like a we're living in a simulation. It was like they weren't real human beings. For me, I've never seen it, and I think part of that, only part of it, is the online way we can say, if I celebrate too hard and then we don't win next year, people will like hold that against me, or I can't celebrate scoring that goal. We might not win the game yet. I can't do. That's why fans at the ground have a much better time than fans online at the moment, because at least when you're there, you're enjoying it. I think all of this plays a part into why we're not enjoying football as much anymore. I see people on previews. No point predicting what's going to happen. I might get it wrong. So people are obsessed online with getting things right. I'm not going to predict it anymore. I might get it wrong. And it's weird. And one of the biggest things out there is this idea that if you're not Real Madrid or you're not playing football like peak Barcelona, well, it's crap then. All of these ideas, I think, have polluted and poisoned the mind of football fans, young and old, to a point where people just seem so much more unhappy. I remember watching football when I was a younger man. Forget a kid. Didn't win the league. You gutted. Yeah. Can't wait for next year, though. We'll buy some players. We're going to come back. I'm excited about what we might do. You talk like that online now. You're abused. You're bullied. So I think people are just stepping away from it. I think it's such an important part of the game. The idea that an Arsenal fan can't go, fucking hated this season, but look who we're linked to. Oh, can't wait for the summer. Can't wait. If you talk like that, you're abused. But that's just how football fans have spoke for decades. Suddenly now, that's seen as wrong. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. It really, really is. It really, really is. And we're going to get into VAR later. UEFA investigating Chelsea again, but City, Nash. Well, that's because Chelsea, UEFA have rejected Chelsea selling their women's team for 200 million. Therefore, they've fouled FFP. So unless a settlement is agreed, there's a chance that Chelsea won't be able to play in Europe next year. So it's a very different scenario. The top has gotten worse. The bottom has gotten better. I think that's a fair point. A fair point. I disagree with Mo and Hassan because if you really look at it, most teams in the top half are not even form. Not even teams are better than Southampton, and 43 points in 2020. And 42 points in 2021. Today, they can't even get 10.
But Forest, who were praising, just got promoted 2 years ago. So that makes no sense.
Football has become factory-like. Kids don't play street ball anymore. They play in academy matches. Personality is coached out of players. Clubs don't risk contracts on players that don't fit the style. There's certainly an element of truth in there. By the way, I'm not just blaming social media. I'm not just blaming the PGMOL. I think all of these things are a factor in this scenario. What era was hoofball? Well, the problem is hoofball. People will always say the 80s,
late
90s.
2000s, I'd say mostly.
But even then, you had Arsene Wenger's football in that period. Like, go back and watch how Owen Coyle was trying to get Bolton to play. There's a reason that Owen Coyle at Bolton was being linked to taking over Arsenal because the football was there. There were managers that played long ball, but let's not pretend that long ball don't exist now. We've just changed the language, Tyler. This is not a dig. How many goals have you seen Liverpool score on the Klopp where the ball was knocked diagonally to Mo Salah or to Mane?
Quite a few.
So again, we just changed the word. We don't call it a long ball anymore. We call it a diagonal through ball. Like, it's the language has changed, but we still knock the ball long now, and it can still be effective.
I think the worst era of the Premier League was late 2000s, early 2010s.
Nah.
That's when after Ronaldo left.
No. Do you know why? Do you know why I disagree with you?
Hear me out. After Ronaldo left, I think the quality of the league got really low for like 3-4 years.
No, because your club was not in it. But I think this is the best time for the Premier League.
Liverpool fan. I feel like the Premier League.
I'm being serious, by the way.
04 to like 2013. The quality for me, what I compare it against is how well and how many of our teams. Arsenal weren't even finishing in title races.
Yeah, but I didn't say that. I said after Ronaldo left.
Yes, but I still think after that, the point I'm making is we still saw Chelsea. Man United got to Champions League finals. Chelsea went on to win a Champions League. And in that era, even teams that you went, I don't think they can win the league this year, still were considered able to win the Champions League. And Europe was very strong and deep back then. Germany, Spain, Italy, all had teams that were of a very
I agree, but that's not the time I'm talking about. So how can you use it as a rebuttal? I said after Ronaldo left. I'm saying after Ronaldo left Man United.
No, but I think...
Are you talking about the quality of the league?
Yes, I'm talking 2010, 11, 12,
You
13,
just destroyed
14.
your point. Because actually, between 2009 and Pep retaining it, like after his first year, no team has retained the Premier League title, which is why it was the most competitive league in the world. Between 2009 and 2018, no one has retained it. That actually is a testament to how competitive the league was.
Yeah, and I
because
think
if you say the quality is low, right? If you say the quality is low, that is the exact same reason why people are saying the quality is low now for this league.
The Premier League now has the best players in the world. Back then, for a 3-4 year period, like 10, 11, 12, 13, they did. I
understand that point, but I think what Potsy was saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I put words in your mouth, There are players that are playing today that would be up there with players of 15, 20 years ago. But I just think there was a deeper pool of players
100%.
back then spread across
Because
football.
social media didn't exist.
No, it's not
Because
social
of the
media.
academies.
It's not because of social
Because they were allowed to
media.
express themselves.
It's
Okay,
not because
Terry,
of social
Mr. Terry,
media.
if 30 years ago, if 20 years ago you were on the Football Terrace, and this Paul Scholes myth that you're talking about right now, 20 years ago, do you not think that there would be Man United fans consistently bashing Paul Scholes on every match reaction?
Yes,
or on every now and then?
Okay,
Yes,
okay. Again, but this is the thing. But I'm calling out the people that push those agendas. There are Man United fans who profess to be United fans, but they hate our academy. They don't like how Fergie played football. They're 30 years old. Don't like the idea of the academy and the DNA. Hated the way Fergie played football. Hate the class of 92 legends. Don't like Ronaldo. Think Rooney was overrated. They're the same people that would be slamming on Scholes. I don't take their opinions seriously. All I'm saying is that those people have corrupted a percentage of the football fan base. The point is, I think there was a deeper collection of top-class players 20 years ago to now. I think there's loads of brilliant players now. The point is, we used to debate who the best centre-back was out of Rio Ferdinand, Sol Campbell, John Terry, to name a few. You had Carvalho in that mix. There was Vidic in that conversation as well. And you guys can keep naming others are in there, right? Right now, we've got Van Dijk, and you've got Gabriel and Saliba.
Gabriel.
Yeah, but they've just...
Together. To be equal to Van Dijk.
You're getting to that point, right, where... Back then we were doing that, and then you would go right, and then you'd look across Europe, and you would start going to the Barca team, the Real Madrid team. You would go to the Bayern Munich and go, "Fucking hell, look how many great centre backs there are." There are still great centre backs now, but there just are not as many as there used to be, in my personal opinion. Let's get to some more of these super chats. But yeah, on Hoofera, that was a while back. The super chat before when I said Arteta better wake up, because I'm worried that if Amorim gets his players like Arteta, United can win the Premier League in 2 to 3 years. That is my opinion. No banter or trolling. I was going to say very quickly on Man United yesterday, I'm getting really excited about next season. I like the base of... I know I am. I like the base of how we play. I like the base. I like the shape. I like the plan. I am. And I love the fact people are laughing, because for me, the pressure for me that I'm feeling is, can we sign the right players? If you actually go and watch our last 5 or 6 Premier League games, we had the vast majority of the better chances. We lack clinical edge and we lack quality in certain individuals. But I like how we're playing. And we're getting to a point already under Amorim where I'm saying, well, I can see that a better striker helps us. A better ball-playing midfielder helps us. Well, under Ten Hag and under Ollie, it was very much like, okay, well, maybe this kind of midfielder would work, and then you find another hole and another issue. Systematically, I like what we're doing. Do I think that we could win the Premier League in 2 to 3 years' time? Depends on how good or bad other people are. But if we sign well in the window...
Trusting the process, Terry.
Well, you've got to, because I've called this out the other day, Potsy, and people hate the wording. Like, we've got to find new words for it.
Yeah, we do.
Nobody has still been able to find me a team that's fallen off like United, who have been a broken club like United for 12 years, who have turned it round with one good summer and with one manager. It takes time to rebuild a team.
Can you explain to us why you're excited, though? Because I think that's a stretch.
Yeah, why are you excited? I don't know.
Because for me, I just, this idea that I've just got to be in a bad mood until my team reaches the top is crazy. I'll give you an example. Are any of you...
You remind me of myself 10 years ago.
Well, I'm older than you, so respect your elders, son. Right? My point of view, my point of view is this, right? Are any of you into flowers? I think is it what is the word when you're into gardening? Is it like horticultural or something, right? Anyway, are any of you into flowers and gardening at all?
No.
I'm not, right? But say you were. Some people just like to go to the Chelsea Flower Show and see all the flowers. Oh, look, that's beautiful. That looks nice. Oh, they're not that good. Some people are interested in how you make those flowers grow in that way. And that's how I am with what Man United are doing right now. I'm excited about how we go about fixing the football club. Do I think we're going to get every decision right? No. Do I think every signing is going to be amazing? Absolutely not. Do I think it's going to be an easy journey? Absolutely not. But I'm excited about the journey. I like the way we're trying to play football. I can see it and I understand it personally. I don't need validation from anybody else that they can see it or they understand. And I'm excited about where this could potentially go. That's all it is. It's a very much a personal thing. I'm excited about it. You know, it's for me, it's about how we get to that point, because no one's been able to convince me it's as simple as just bringing in a manager and buying 5 or 6 players and you're going to get back to the top. There is a process to fixing a destroyed, broken, rotten football club and getting it back to the top. And I'm excited.
If me and Mo criticize your club this summer, can you not be emotional like last year, please? Because when we told you the Dutch players thing, Jim Ratcliffe confirmed it. So you were wrong on that.
Hang on, sorry. Stop. Confirm what?
Jim Ratcliffe said that the reason why we got a couple of Dutch players was Ten Hag, which is a criticism me and Mo said last summer. Like, we can criticize your football club.
That's fair, and I will get emotional at times because it's my club. Like, I'm not going to promise I won't get emotional. What I'm saying is, we've just sat here and spoke about how football fans, we've got to stop pushing football fans down and saying you can't be excited, you can't enjoy things. It's only just about the end result and lifting the trophy. I think I actually have come to a conclusion that's bullshit. We have everybody wants. Look at Forest this season. Everybody's calling out Forest. Oh wow, look what they're doing. No one's interested in the 8 years it's taken to get there. You don't just get when their owner took over in 2017 and started building towards this. This didn't just happen because Nuno came in. They've been building to this for 8 years. So I just find it. People talk about Villa. Speak to real Villa fans. And when they started making, when they got relegated, the club threw out the script, teared it up, and started again in a plan to get back to the very pinnacle of the game. They're not now here just because Unai Emery turned up. They made a mistake in the Gerrard appointment. But Smith before Gerrard was part of getting them back to where they need to be. The idea that football fans should ignore everything until they're at the top, I think it is a poisonous notion that makes us enjoy football less. And I'm pushing back against it. I really, really am. Doesn't mean I'm right and we're going to win the league in 3 years. But I'm just not going to sit here and be fucking depressed every week until we're at the top. What's the fucking point of watching football if you're only happy with the trophy at the end of it? If you only get enjoyment at that point? None of us fell in love with football because of that. So let's not fucking lie to the youngsters. Let's not fucking bullshit online that's why we fell in love with football. No one did. No one.
I just said you remind me of myself 10 years ago. Next year is our year.
Listen, you're my youth, bro.
Just quickly, are you absolutely dead certain that Amarim's the guy? Give him the tools, and he'll be the guy to lead you forward. Is that what you're saying?
Am I certain? When you say certain, he's the guy for what?
To win you the league, because that's what Man United should be doing in the next couple of years.
No, I'm not.
I'm
not 100% certain, but I think there's a good. I would put 80% sure that he's good enough to win a Premier League title as a manager. I like him. I like his charisma. I like his honesty. You know, this man, when we were looking really terrible, said it's the worst United team ever. We start making improvements in our foundation. He says, I can see where we're improving, but we need more quality. Suddenly people are calling him out as a liar. We didn't call him a liar when he said we're the worst team ever. I do trust him. So I think there's a really good opportunity and chance. And if he doesn't, if he fouls, I hold my hands up and say I got it wrong. I ain't a bitch. It doesn't matter to me. I'm just not going to sit around and be depressed every day until our team's lifting a trophy for the best in England again. That could be.
I would be worried if I was a Man United fan. I would still be worried, but I suppose you can get excited because you'll have a tent over your stadium soon. But other than that, I don't really see what's going to be.
He's thinking about it differently, bro.
I'll be laughing at you, man.
He's thinking about it differently, but Terry's talking about the process. He's gonna enjoy the journey, the friends they make along the way, and the moment.
Sounding like an Arsenal fan.
He's literally the speech you gave us, bro. It's all about But I hear you. But there is no point of you sitting here and being depressed. Okay, Terry can sit on every stream and just scream and yell and have a rant, an explosive rant after an explosive rant. And just be depressed. And every show, you guys want to see Terry cry. We are shit. We're never winning the league.
Yeah. Well, you got to think about it. We're just
enjoy the journey.
Again,
it's a choice.
These thoughts just come to you at times. And I sat there and I do mean what I said. The way we consume football online, I think, is leading to a lot of people not enjoying the game anymore. And I'm just thinking, I'll still criticize bad performances. I'll still be angry at times. So you can clip it up and go, Terry, you said you're just going to enjoy it. Of course, there's going to be times where I'm angry, or signings don't work, or that was a bad decision. But it doesn't mean I have to sit here and be depressed every minute of every day, kicking off every single day until we're back at the top. I just don't see how that is constructive. Oh, Real Madrid fans, get the hankies out. Oh, Ajax fans storm the stadium. That's in a moment of poor quality in an overall brilliant period. right, for their clubs. That's fundamentally different to where Man United are. I still think it's going to take 3 to 4 years to get us back to the top and be consistent if the plan works. I'm not going to sit here and be angry. I will make myself mentally ill. I will become mentally ill. My hair transplant will fall out. I'll go grey and I might give myself a heart attack. I am not going to do that to myself just to get a few more clicks online from people because, oh, you're a real fan when you're angry. Says who? Show me where in the rule book of being a fan it says, unless you're angry every day until you're the best team in England, you got. By the way, that means no one should ever have been an Arsenal fan. Because how many times in your club's history have you genuinely been the best, the most dominant team in England?
3 times.
Not enough. Not enough.
So not enough. So therefore, by your own logic, you shouldn't even be an Arsenal fan. And by that same logic, you could win league titles but still not be happy. But we're still not the most dominant and best ever. How far do you take the logic? How far do you take the anger? No one will answer it for you as well, by the way, because then there has to be a cutoff point. It's like the Arteta bringing players back too early. I've asked 4 Arteta outers this week. So how many weeks, games, months do you give it of Saka returning now to his next injury until you don't blame Arteta, like for rushing him back? They don't want to give me an answer. They want to keep it open-ended because they want to be able to moan about it. It's crazy. I'm not doing it anymore. I'm not pulling into it at all.
You are correct. You have to be excited. Like I said, 12 years ago, I was very excited when we signed Charlie Adam. So no one is telling you don't be excited. You can be excited. Yeah. It's funny because the super chatter said 2 years from now they should win the league. Terry's response is, do you guys like gardening? Flowers. We can talk about you can tell he's just a broken man now.
No, it's not that I'm broken. It was Sunshine, the United fans said it. He was talking about Amorim and he said everybody wants, all the United fans were like, they saw the flowers that his example was, he saw the flowers that Amorim grew at Sporting and they wanted that. What they're ignoring is the 4 years of work that went into producing those flowers. And that's people are doing it right now with Villa. They're doing it right now when it comes to Forest. They ignore all the work, the process, the phase. I'm using the words everyone hates on purpose, by the way. The process, the phases, the step changes. They ignore everything and the mistakes that went into building it. And they just want the end result. And that's the problem with a lot of people. That's why, by the way, a lot of people go and get liposuction. It's why a lot of people go and get fake tan. It's why a lot of people go and get, like, a lot of men nowadays getting like these fake abs put in because they don't want to go and do the hard work to get it. They just want it instantly. They just want it ready-made. It's as simple as that. Some more super chat before we move on to the PGMOL here. This here says, guys, in the past seasons, if City won 1 in 11 or lost 9 games, they would be in a dogfight. But because this season has been average, you don't need 40 points.
No, it's because the other teams are very strong and close to each other and they're beating each other. That's why everyone is close to each other. See, I can look at it from the other way, Ray. Very simple, Ray.
Someone here says those flowers, Terry, are covered in manure. Well, you have to use shit to grow a good garden. So yes, like shit and gardening is part of it, I'm afraid. I use chicken manure. It's very, very good for my roses, chicken manure. It's very, very good. Terry, with your Gerrard logic, is Foden better than Saka as Foden has actually contributed to the Premier League race? It's a great point. So again, there's the fundamental here. So yeah, no. See, you think he's got me, Hassam, but my logic is based on just...
You made the worst list of all time.
No, he hasn't got me because I've spoke about this before.
It's worse than anything Igal said. Imagine.
I don't. You're just hurt because Gerrard's low down on the list. Your bum's hurt, mate. It's not my fault.
Where was Gerrard on the list? Terry, where was Gerrard on your list?
Eighth. Imagine.
No.
I can only laugh, mate.
Because again, I don't. This is the thing. I don't care how
Man United bias. Come on, is that Man United bias?
No,
yeah, he put Scholes first, though.
I have Scholes first, but hang on, guys.
0 Man United Player of the Year, 0 Ballon d'Or nominations.
But I don't.
No one wanted to be Scholes growing up. He's
okay,
first,
but this is the problem, right? When you mentioned like Ballon d'Or nominations, but you were literally crying about certain players not winning Ballon d'Or.
Name one Ballon d'Or guy I cried about. Name one.
Anyway, let's get back to the logic.
No, don't just lie, because you have seen. I lied about you.
Okay, I have seen you moan online about people not winning.
Name one Ballon d'Or guy I disagreed with. Name one right now. I dare you.
A couple of seasons ago, I see you do it on Twitter. I'll go back and look at your tweets, but I remember you tweeting about it, saying it's corrupt. I remember you talking about the awards being corrupt at the Ballon d'Or.
I never mentioned that about the Ballon d'Or. I think Messi deserved it. I think Benzema deserved it. I think Rodri deserved it. I never complained.
Let me finish. You said it may not have even been about the overall winner. It may have been someone who was in like their best 11 or who won one of the goalkeeper awards. You were moaning about it, and I just laughed because I don't think the player awards are that serious. You also, like, when you mention player awards, you sit there and say, like, Foden, the most undeserved player of the award year winner ever. I've been saying for the past 10 years online that I don't think player awards are a great barometer because I often think they're biased and more about popularity than the quality of a player. I saw Man United win a treble where Beckham ended up coming second in a Ballon d'Or, but fucking David Ginola won player of the season in England. Ever since then, I've ignored it. I also spoke to you about how I've seen players talk about this on podcasts, how their teams would vote for player of the year, but they would do it to try and screw over a player in a team they hated. Ever since I witnessed all of that, I stopped taking it so seriously. But anyway, the point about the list, and let's get back to the super chat.
But then you and Potts just say that individual quality was better 20 years ago?
What's that got to do with anything?
It got to do that it's more difficult to be like awarded individually because everyone's so much better.
I still felt that the player awards were so heavily, and it never made sense. You'd have a team like Man United at some seasons where we would dominate and win the league and win the FA Cup. Team of the year would come out, and there'd be like more players from teams that come third than ours. I didn't agree with it, and I thought our players were better. So I've never taken it that seriously. I've always felt that they include players from certain clubs to keep more fan bases engaged with what they're doing. I just don't think it's based always on quality. We've seen that with people winning it in the past, but let's get away from that for a moment because I've done that debate with you 100 times and I don't want to have it again.
And you always lost it.
I don't care if I lost it because I'm not that emotional. Let me just get to this fucking point, Sam. When it comes to my list, okay, I'll get on to Gerrard in a minute. When it comes to the Saka situation, I have spoke before about how I've held Foden higher than Saka in the past because I have seen Foden deliver in Premier League winning title races, and I won't change my logic. I prefer Saka subjectively as a player, but I won't ignore what I've seen Foden do in other seasons and deliver in title races. However, what you fundamentally miss is that Foden and Saka are still at the early and I suppose mid stages with Foden now of their careers. And the other players on the list, we know what they've done and achieved because their careers are over. So when you're talking about young players, you could, for the first 2 years, go, well, Saka's ahead of Ahmad. But in 5 years' time, we could all see it differently. Because if Ahmad goes on a mad run and scores loads of goals in title-winning Premier League seasons, Champions League winning seasons, and keeps delivering, and Saka doesn't do that, we may all change our minds. So when it comes to young players, where you list them today may change in 5 years' time because we don't know what they're going to do in the future. The difference is when you're doing it after someone's retired, you know exactly what they've done and achieved. So longevity is a big part of what I talk about. So let's say Foden now never gets back to the previous years, retires when he's 32. The fact that he fell off at 25 would go against him if Saka maintains his levels right to the end of his career. So you can't do a final list for players that are 23, 24, 25. So when it comes to the logic, it's not flawed. They're just not at the end of their
Oh, you didn't answer this question, though.
No, I've completely answered these questions.
So it's Foden better than Saka? Just straight answer.
But not in what way?
He just look at the super chat.
But
Your Gerrard logic is Foden better than Saka because Foden has
because,
contributed to a title race.
No,
blah, blah,
no, because you're not listening. You're not listening.
I did listen. I just want a straight answer.
They're not the same lists. I'm not putting these two young players on a legacy list because they're still in the middle of their careers. It's a different conversation. If you're asking me to list at the end of last season, who do I have higher? Subjectively, I think Saka's a better football player. But who's got a better legacy in the game? The man who's won the trophies, the man who's delivered in them. However, is that going to change by the end of their careers? Absolutely. The idea that I have to... Fuck off. The idea that I have to pick one of the players when they're 23 and 24 and stick with that opinion until they're in their mid-30s is the most ridiculous thing ever.
We're asking you right now who's better, Foden or Saka.
No. You're wrong. Hold on.
I'm going to ask you.
I can ask both of you a simple question. Saka and Foden retire today. Who has a bigger legacy in the Premier League?
Zane's point is not legacy. You don't
See, you are deflecting as well.
Zane's point is legacy because my list is based on legacy. How can it not be about legacy?
You are
because your list is your list says top 10 best midfielders in Premier League history.
Okay. Let me
your logic.
Let me ask.
Everyone's gonna shout that Zane got you. Zane got you, so you're rattled.
Let's move on from this.
Zane got you. Big up Zane.
I can ask Terry a simple question.
You completely got him.
Watch Terry answer this. Terry, Foden and Saka retired today, right? And you are making top 10 wingers, and you have Foden and Saka. Who's higher on the list?
Foden.
Sam, today, Saka and Foden retired today. Who you're having higher on the list, Saka or Foden?
Saka, done. Straight.
And that's fine. I ain't bothered by that. My frustration is that again, I don't care whether people like my lists or not. I don't tweet and I don't make videos for people to validate my opinions. The reason why Gerrard is 8th, and I stand by this, I vote Potsy because that's all I wanted to get to was tell Potsy a response. And Mo just, not Mo, Hassan just hates it because if Gerrard ain't up near the top, his bum starts to hurt, right? The difference is this, Potsy. It does. It stings. It's like, oh my God, what's that? The thing for me is, right, is that when it comes to, I'm rattled because you keep interrupting me, not because of my opinion. The thing for me
you didn't even answer the guy.
I'm actually putting you on mute. I'm muting you so that I can actually finish my conversation to Potsy. So for me, I judge legacy on 4 things: ability, consistency and longevity, outputs, depending on the role that you're in, of course. And then I look at how you help deliver trophies for your team. So how integral were you in winning trophies for your team? So when I look at my list, Potsy, and I go through it, I don't actually have it in front of me right now. I have Paul Scholes number 1. I have, people say it's bias. I have KDB 2nd. So the idea that I'm putting a City player in second place as an example on that list is there. Let me just scroll down to this list, right? I then have Roy Keane 3rd. I have Frank Lampard, followed by Patrick Vieira, followed by Rodri, followed by David Silva, followed by Gerrard, followed by Yaya, followed by Kante. So I have less Man United midfielders in my list, by the way. So there's multiple Man United players that have won more trophies than those guys. But it isn't just trophies that I base it on. It's ability, longevity, their outputs. Obviously, I understand that Patrick Vieira is not going to score as many goals as an attacking midfield player, but I watched him play. So that's my list. And I base when I list my players, it's all based on the exact same logic: longevity, output, consistency, and the trophies they help their team win. And for me, I saw Paul Scholes into his late 30s dominate midfield battles, helping a team win Premier League trophies, delivering in title runs. And I hold, Potsy, what players do in title run-ins, I hold it in such high regard. The same as Drogba gets into the top list on everybody's striker levels because of what he did in cup finals and clutch moments. I hold that to a very high esteem. So that's just my view of these things.
Do you know what? I don't sit down. Look, the names you've put on that list they're unbelievable players. Okay. Where I was kind of shocked to start with is because I thought you were talking about attacking midfielders. I didn't realize you were putting Roy Keane and Kevin De Bruyne in the same kind of list, because for me they're totally different positions. But yeah, that's where I'm at. So when people try to compare Patrick Vieira with Lampard, that's crazy to me. That's
so for
like
me,
2 different lists.
Yeah, I've just put, and that's a really fair challenge. I've just put midfielders overall. If you're going to go with attacking midfield players, I'm putting KDB top, because for me, Scholes started as an attacking midfield player, but I think the very best Scholes when he dropped deeper into the central midfield area, as an example. So for me, KDB would be number 1 if we're doing attacking midfield players, and then I'd probably follow it by Lampard. And then it would be followed by either David Silva or Steven Gerrard for me. I'd put those guys in that order on that.
I think it's a different convo, of course.
And that's fair.
KDB, Gerrard, and Lampard, we'll have that debate all day long. I don't think you can add Scholes and Vieira into the same list, in my opinion, because they're different.
And that's really, really fair. And that's why it's better just to have a conversation, listen to each other, as opposed to trying to catch people out. So for me, it's that makes a lot more sense. It's like Rodri wasn't even. Actually, I had a little while ago, I had Roy Keane a little bit lower on my list, but then it was just things I forgot. And because then you forget things as a footballer. I went back and watched things and listened to things and went, shit, I forgot he did that. And I forgot about that performance. And that's the problem as well when you make these lists. Younger people are going to have a much different list from me, because some of them don't remember watching Patrick Vieira play. So how can I even assess it? It's really, really, it's
Vieira,
really,
as in all round, Vieira for me, he could do everything. But I'm going to say that because I'm biased, of course.
No, absolutely. And look, I'm just not going to change my mind. I look at, you're going to hear Harry Kane talk about it at the end of this season, and how these goals in this title run-in that's going to win his first ever league title, how much more they mean, the pressure he felt, how much the adulation, and the fact that these goals, it'd be more remembered in Germany than in England because we're not witnessing it week in, week out here. Those goals are going to be far more memorable than scoring a winner when his team was 6th in the league against Bolton. It's just, at the end of the day, they mean a lot more. It's why Gerrard's winner in the FA Cup final, why his brilliant performances in that Champions League winning title run will be remembered more than the goals he scored when his team were coming 5th and 6th.
Remember more than anything Scholes did by his 8th.
Is he number 1? Is he number 1 for you, Hassan? Gerard.
Yes, for me, I'm very
Surprise.
objective when it comes to these lists. I do not give a shit about trophies when comparing individuals because this is a team sport, and when you compare two individuals, trophies never come into it. Harry Kane is the best striker in the world over the last 5 years. He's won fuck all. So when I look at players individually, they're in different situations. I think the three best midfielders in Premier League history, I can tell you the top five. I think Gerrard is number one. I think Lampard is number two. I think Vieira is number three. I think four is Kevin De Bruyne, and I think five is Cesc Fabregas. Those are the five best midfielders.
Can I ask you a question on that, right? So I get why you structure it the way you do, and the same thing could be said to the way I structure it. I think you structure it personally because you want to remove the trophy element and how integral players were in building it because you know it goes against Steven Gerrard. Equally, you could throw the argument at me that I want the trophies included because it props up my best players.
Yes.
Absolutely fair. And I can accept that as a man. My question to you is, how do Man United not have, with the plethora of midfielders we've had, anyone in the top five, but yet our midfielders have delivered and been more consistent over a longer period of time than all of those? Why don't you have any of our midfielders in your top five, just out of interest?
Okay, I'll answer that very straightforward. I think Roy Keane is a lot better than Paul Scholes. I have him sixth. Maybe I didn't watch him as much. He's sixth on the list. And the reason why Man United won a lot is because of the other players in other positions, which I rate highly, like Dennis Irwin, like Patrice Evra, like Rio Ferdinand, like Nemanja Vidic, like Schmeichel and Van der Sar and De Gea, like Ronaldo, who I say is the best winger in Premier League history, even though I have Salah, so it's not biased, like Wayne Rooney, who I say actually is the second or third best player in Premier League history, who I rate very highly. So just because I knock down an argument for one guy who's completely overrated and completely, like, people have completely revised his career, it doesn't mean that I just, it's Man United bias. No, it's not. Because on the other positions, if we make a wingers list, Man United will be up there. Strikers, same. Center back, same.
So very quickly, though. Sorry, Poitsy, one question I have. Whenever I heard everyone speak about football, the position that everybody says is the most important in a team to make it elite and make it win is the central midfield area. So that's the only element that I disagree. It's not even about disagreeing. I don't understand how the midfield of Man United that delivered more trophies than any other midfield combination or midfield that's like on your list that was more consistent and had the longevity can be the position that everybody, by and large, or the consensus holds as the most important in the game. And suddenly it's overrated and misrepresented. I don't quite understand how that can happen.
Yeah, because Chelsea, as an example, won league titles under Conte and under Jose Mourinho with similar midfields. I'm not out here propping Nemanja Matic and Kante and stuff like that. Like, I rate certain individuals higher, and your forwards were better, way better than a lot of the forwards in the Premier League history. That's why when you're asking me, like, best forward line player, I'm not out here saying, Fernando Torres and Luis Suarez. Have you ever heard me do like what Ram does, where I put Luis Suarez like high up there? No, I don't. I'm talking about individually what the player did. That's why I rate Wayne Rooney as the second best Premier League player in history after Thierry Henry. That, like, I rate him very highly. It's just one player that you've completely revised his career because you guys got jealous that we were talking about Gerrard and Lampard on the playgrounds and you wanted to get involved. So you just brought in this random guy that had nowhere near the quality of the other two, who just like Phil Foden is a cog in the machine.
This is where you're doing too much. To say that we revised Scholes' career, nobody was talking about him when he was playing. Firstly, the idea that nobody, when we were kids, Potsy, was speaking about Paul Scholes is just a lie. It is it is a fundamental lie from Hassam and isn't the truth, as an example. And there was no social media back then, so I don't understand how Hassam sitting in Jordan, and by the way, maybe no one in Jordan spoke about it, but how does Hassam know what the kids on the playground and the kids in the park in the 90s and in the noughties without social media was speaking about? Paul Scholes' name was on everybody's lips. The idea that it wasn't is a lie. The also idea that we revised his career when, like, Gerrard retired and everybody was like, we better find someone to prop up, is just an absolute fundamental lie. That didn't happen. He's always been discussed as a top level player in England. When this guy was 16, 17 years of age, You don't remember, Sam, because you weren't around what was being written about this kid that was coming through and how brilliant he was. It's just a lie to
I'll add
say
to that as well.
we revised his career when he got to his late 30s because Gerrard was getting good media PR. That's just bullshit, Sam.
Him and Lampard.
Let
When
me
we
add-
grew up
let me add to
football
that.
in the playgrounds, everyone wanted to be Gerrard or Lampard. No one wanted to be Scholes. Same thing all over the world in 3 countries that I've lived in. And to answer your question, when I got social media, I asked people who grew up in the UK and they confirmed it with me.
If what you're saying is true, then why did Lionel Messi confirm to the world that when it comes to the Barcelona academy, right? Why is it that Paul Scholes was used as an example of a football player that they like to emulate? Equally, we actually saw the video. Have you guys seen the video footage from behind the scenes in the building?
Messi called Gerrard the best English player ever.
Yeah, but I'm not saying Messi. I'm not saying Gerrard was a shit guy that was overrated. I'm saying he was brilliant.
Look at you twisting the statement. You used Messi.
So hang on. No, but see, this is the difference between you and I. I am not lying about Steven Gerrard. I don't need to take away from Steven Gerrard to prop up the player I like. What I would also say is this, right? We all know how great the Spanish midfield is. It was a side point. Did you see what their plan for the Euros final? It was all about how to stop Mainu, and they'd be able to beat England as an example. And yet English fans are all like, well, what does Mainu do? One of the best footballing nations in the world. Their best academy puts Paul Scholes as like the pinnacle to how to master being a midfielder, right? And then the Spanish national team to stop England in a final, it's all about how you stop Mainu. The subtleties and the qualities of players like Scholes and Mainu, I think typically are wasted on the average English, not English as in your nationality, English football fan who watches English football as its primary. I think those players, their subtleties and qualities are wasted on us. There's something about it that we ignore. If Scholes was Spanish and he played in the Spanish league, I just think people would appreciate him more. Potsy,
He was just an average player.
Let me comment on this because look, I hate to defend the Man United player because I can't stand that football club, right? And they put me through absolute hell for 10 years. The reason they put me through hell between 96 and 2006 was because of Paul Scholes. Manchester United in that period was unbelievable. And the balance of that midfield was because of him. And you asked Thierry Henry, who was the one that you looked at, it was Paul Scholes. It wasn't Giggs. It wasn't Keane even. Vieira and Keane had their times at their tussle, but it was Paul Scholes. The tempo of that midfield, the balance of that midfield, what he could do on the football was ridiculously bad. Now, because he couldn't tackle and it wasn't one of his best attributes, people think he's an absolute dosser. It's just ridiculous, in my opinion. I think he's a phenomenal footballer. I hate to say it because I couldn't stand him when we were coming up against him. I enjoyed watching Gerrard more, if I'm honest. I appreciated what Gerrard did, and I thought what he did to get that team scruff of the neck at the time, probably a pretty bang average Liverpool side at sometimes, was incredible. However, Paul Scholes, I think Hassam is doing too much. I don't know how much of him he watched when he was growing up. I've no idea. He's not worse than Roy Keane. Roy Keane was unbelievable as a leader, but there's no way he's a better footballer than Paul Scholes. Paul Scholes was better than Roy Keane, in my opinion. And lastly, to caveat that, when Zidane and Xavi were asked, are you the best central midfielders in the world? They said, go and ask Paul Scholes.
That's a fake quote.
That to me says enough about it. Zidane
It's not a real quote. You fell for it.
No, it is a real quote. Zidane said it.
United fans, by the way, 3/4 of the quotes are fake, just so you know. And it's funny because I work with Dan Potts and Mo, and I know that they both like Gerrard over Scholes, but they're not calling out Terry for putting Gerrard 8th, but they're calling me out because I did call him.
I called him out.
He did.
They both say Gerrard is better than Scholes, like to me, right? And they're here. No one is saying anything. Like they're both fine.
But this is the thing that you're
I've been on
missing.
straight facts 3 years. I call that Terry the most out of any straight facts person.
The reason I know why they're not calling me out though.
All you guys are sucking up to your employer. I'm not. I'm calling
I'm not sucking up to Terry. I'll call Terry out.
It's not about sucking up to me. They asked me what my logic was. They don't agree with my logic, but they understand because I hold someone's performances in title races and winning those major trophies, because I hold that in high regard. They disagree with my logic, but they understand where I'm coming from. The difference is here is I'm not going to change my mind on it because I think it's an important part of football that's ignored so much. And I want to just go to a very quick comment before we go to more super chats, because we haven't even gotten to the PGMOL yet, where someone said Terry using Mainu in an argument for Scholes means he's lost it. You're not listening. You're not listening to what it is that I'm saying here. I'm talking about the subtleties of a player. In England, I think players like Mainu's, players like Paul Scholes', I also think, by the way, he's injured a lot for Liverpool. Players like Thiago Alcantara's, I don't think as English football fans, we often appreciate these football players enough. I just think there's an element of them where I think our brothers on the continent, in Italy and in Spain and the like, appreciate it a lot more than we do. We just don't. Like Michael Carrick was, I wouldn't put him in the same category as any of those guys. I think he's a level below them. I just remember reading articles over in and listening to people on TV in Italy when I used to go and watch Champions League away games, like wax lyrical. In England, he might get a footnote comment every now and then on TV because he wasn't crunching into tackles and scoring screamers. It was just ignored. And we do that a lot in England. The fact that Scott Parker was viewed as a better midfield player than Michael Carrick, I think it shows the palette that we have in the UK for these types of things. And the fact is that the Spanish team put a plan in place to stop England, and it involved nullifying Mainu and splitting him and Declan Rice apart because Rice by himself they weren't as concerned with. And yet we get English football fans that go, but what does Mainu do? It tells me there's a lack of understanding of the game there. Let's finish these super chats. I want to get into the PGM as well. Criticism of Man City players, etc., doesn't get the same amount of traction of United, Chelsea, Arsenal, and Liverpool. For the media, it doesn't generate noise. I think there's some truth to that. Could you start a weekly European roundup show, for instance? It's amazing to see how Strasbourg. I can't. I don't watch enough of the games from across the continent, so it'd be disrespectful. But maybe it's something that we can look to doing as a channel and bring in people that do watch those games. But to be honest with you, a lot of people fake they watch that much football. A lot of people just repeat what they read on Twitter. I'm telling you.
Steve.
Strasbourg is the only guy. He's the only guy. I see too many people on their Insta stories out who then pretend they watch like 10 games a weekend. I don't, but when do you fucking sleep? What are you, not narcoleptic? What's the one? It got insomnia. I'm sorry, the revisionism of Foden from last season is crazy. Foden's GA last season won City 51 points alone. KDB was out for 6 months, and in that period he outscored Haaland. Listen, that's why, by the way, I am not doing Foden revisionism. I'm not undoing anything from his past. I think the goals and the assists and the performances last season and in multiple other title-winning seasons is what holds Foden in such high regard. The question I am posing is whether or not in the long term, after a bad season, City should be going, he's the guy to replace KDB, or should they be looking at a Verts or a Musiala to add into that team as well? That is the big question. But Zayn, you challenged me a minute earlier about the Saka thing. What Foden did last season in the title run, I hold that in such high regard, and I always will, because it's the most pressured. I think it's the most pressure you can feel as a football player in title run-ins, when you're chasing trophies, when you're chasing the big prizes. Delivering in those moments, for me, puts you in a higher category of legend. Foden has been a shadow of the player he was last year. Ever since the Euros, Foden had a massive drop-off because it's City. There's no clout, is what Terence Pace says here. David Silva, most productive season was 22 GA, and second best was 19 GA. Foden will get similar GA. The main issue is, apart from Haaland, no one else is productive in that City front line. There's an element of truth there, Zayn. What I would say about a player like David Silva, though, I think what you're ignoring is his influence on the game. Not everything about midfielders. Paul Scholes a pretty decent GA, but Paul Scholes, you look at, like, if you actually look at, I think it's Iniesta, or no, Xavi's like GA output. You can't just do midfielders on GA. You have to look at other components of their game. And what David Silva brought to Man City was just absolutely out of this world. And he was a great player. Good morning. In the early 2000s to 2011. Had quality teams. When you play top six would determine who won the Premier League. It's a really good point. AMT here said Arsenal fans don't cry, it happens, includes me. I don't know what that's about.
No.
Scholes retired, came out of retirement and won a league again. Not too many players can say they have done that. He was overrated. We didn't need him back. He was just some overrated player.
He started 8 games that year.
Yeah, what they did, very important part. What they did, Patrick, is he retired, and Fergie realized that Gerrard and Lampard might win the debate. So he said, right, fake retirement and then come back 6 months later.
You're so annoyed. I could tell I got you, honestly. I really can.
Do you know what it is? Do you know,
I'm just not bothering.
I will admit.
He literally started 8 games that season, came back from retirement and won us the league. He started 8 games.
Helped to win the team the league.
So the other 32 games when he didn't start, so what did he do? He was just cheering from the sidelines and he won you the game.
Well, he didn't come back until the January. So you're making it sound like he came back in the summer. He came back over halfway through the season.
Yeah, okay. And halfway through the season is how many games? 19? He started 8.
Half.
Won us that.
at 38 years old and was very good in those games for us, helped us a lot to win the league title.
There's many players who are 38 who are playing now, not that deep.
Are they influencing midfields to win league titles?
Yeah, Lewandowski is the top scorer in La Liga.
And we hold Lewandowski in a high regard as one of the greatest strikers of his generation.
I do as well, and he's been recognized individually.
The example of a 38-year-old coming back and doing it is one that you hold in high regard, but Gerrard, nothing. Sorry, Scholes. Sorry, this one here says so. Legacy and overall quality be on separate lists. I think you can look at it that you can do that. I keep ability in that same list, but we're talking the legacy. So ability plays into your legacy, but I don't think ability is the only element because there's no way Harry Kane can be on a legacy list against players that have won things. I don't see how. I'm not going to change. No other sport does that. Like you have to win things. Your ability has to win things. And people, I always hear this. Oh, you can't help what team you're in. You can't help what country you play for. You don't have to re-sign for your team. You can move. Scholes is forgettable. I hear it. Yeah, he's so forgettable. Everyone's still talking about him
because you put him on the list.
I only hear about Scholes when Gerrard and Lampard are mentioned, not even by United fans. I don't know what United fans you listen to. Paul Scholes is sung about at grounds every single game. It's just not true. He's still sung about now.
Oh, really? Paul Scholes is sung about. Liverpool could play West Ham, and West Ham fans would sing about Steven Gerrard and the slip. People can play Chelsea and would sing songs about Fat Frank. I haven't heard one single Scholes song, even when United have been shit.
No, I said Man United fans still sing about him because the claim here is that not even United fans talk about him. What are you talking
but rival fans still sing about Lampard and Gerrard. More memorable.
That has absolutely nothing to do with what Tyler has said here.
No, Tyler grew up in Australia. He grew up in a different part of the world as well, and he's telling you Gerrard and Lampard were lumped together. No one spoke about Scholes back then.
Well, again, but this is one thing you also forget. You know, Paul Scholes almost had a 10-year career before Gerrard had even made his first team appearance. And this is the problem with age of people. Maybe Tyler's older. Okay, maybe it is. Equally, when in the early 90s, I always hear from people in America, Canada, Australia. In the early 90s, these guys didn't. Premier League TV wasn't even being played on TV. It was being played on TV. So my point is this: if you guys didn't watch the early 90s into the late 90s of Paul Scholes, of Ryan Giggs, you can't talk about it. This man had won trebles, doubles, and dominated Premier League midfields. Okay, and dominated Premier League midfields before these other guys had even started playing properly. So yes, you're right. There may have been a stage where these two were in their pomp and Scholes was in the latter stages of his career where they were spoken about more. But you're cross-pathing things here. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, just really funny. Like, maybe he's a little bit old, but you've got players like Mo Salah coming to the end of their careers now, right? Who are at the end. And you've got other young attackers that are in the early stages. What's going to happen is eventually soon, Mo Salah's going to stop being discussed because he's going to move on from Liverpool, kind of go into semi-retirement. And then what you're going to hear is about the younger players that are in conversation with him now, maybe like Saka and others. That will be the dominant debate for 10 years. And then what you'll hear with some people will do comparisons and say, who do you think was better from these players? And they'll throw in a Mo Salah. And you'll get someone of a certain age that will go, yeah, but I remember debating about Salah and Foden. And let's just throw Ahmad's name in there for the sake of a point. I don't really remember Mo Salah being spoken about. Well, that's because they only overlapped at the best part of their careers for a period. You're ignoring the bit that came before it. We have to be very careful of the framing of these conversations.
He's calling you a kid, Osama. You're going to take that. He's calling you a kid. Literally, he just said that you're just a kid, bro. Like,
it could be my son.
My head's not hot. I want this.
Zinedine Zidane, my toughest opponent, Scholes of Manchester. He is the complete midfielder. Scholes is undoubtedly the greatest midfielder of his generation. I am an Arsenal fan. Is what
I dare you find me the article or the interview where he actually says this. I can link you a Guardian article right. That's a fake quote, number one. Second of all, I can find your Guardian article right now where in 2009, Zinedine Zidane called Gerrard better than Messi and Ronaldo with an article. Me, when I bring up quotes, I bring up articles, I bring up videos, I bring up interviews. I don't just make up shit. You're following what random United fans made up on.
That is fake, fair play. I believed it as well. I didn't.
Actually, it is fake. That is actually there is no evidence of this quote.
I didn't know that. I just
doesn't exist. Just like 3/4 of the Scholes quotes, all fake, made up. Apparently, they ask Xavi, who's the best midfielder in the world. He's like, I don't know. Ask Paul Scholes. Completely made up quote.
You know, what I will say is this, though. I'm not going to put Paul Scholes down because some idiot online makes up a fake quote. Do you know what I'm saying? But there is an article
Yeah.
here. Hang on. So would you accept this though? There's an article here on Give Me Sport that says Zinedine Zidane names the one player he regrets playing with, and he names Paul Scholes in it because he says that in an article. You're accepting of that?
If he says
he regrets not playing with. Okay, he didn't say he's the greatest midfielder.
This is what he said.
Pirlo wanted to play with Gerrard.
I can, but this is the thing, right? Your rebuttal can't be what people said about Gerrard because none of us are making it. This is the problem with your argument. So forget whether people agree with you or not. No one is claiming that Gerrard wasn't loved, respected, and thought of as brilliant. You're claiming that Scholes was a nothing person that nobody spoke of. The fact there's quotes of people caring about him debunks your argument. And you can't rebuttal it with, but Gerrard was praised. We know he was.
No, it doesn't, because I don't bring up quotes to begin with. I'm just telling the world that three-quarters of the quotes are actually fake.
How can he be a nothing player if Zidane says here it's the only he says here it's only natural to want to select your best players, and there's no doubt to me that Paul Scholes is still in a class of his own. He says he is almost untouchable at what he does. He goes, I never tire of watching him play. That's a direct quote that's in the article here on Gimme Sports website that I'm reading, right? So to quote you, my point is this is the argument people are throwing at you. And yes, there are fake quotes flying around. Who made them up? Nobody knows. Could be United, could be rival fans. I don't personally care. The point is your argument is no one cared about him. He was like an afterthought. But the fact that people like Zidane is not saying this because he wants Scholes. He's not being paid by Man United to win this debate. The point is your argument is now beaten because if someone like Zidane speaks about him like this, he can't have been some afterthought by Man United fans. It's done. This year, if I wanted someone in my team, it would be Gerrard, but Scholes has a better legacy similar to what I would have Neymar over Bale, but Bale delivers more. Again, that's a fair argument. I understand why people would want Gerrard, why some people would want Gerrard. By the way, one thing I'd rebuttal what you said, Potsy, I don't think he was a bad tackler. Scholes has spoke about this in his book. A lot of those late tackles were on purpose. He said it was by design. I went into crunch people. So there we go. And by the way, that's something him and Gerrard shared. Gerrard used to fucking hurt people in his tackles.
Gerrard is a way better tackler.
I said talk about not sing. Well, I know for a fact Man United fans definitely speak about Paul Scholes still. Very quickly, I don't want to miss any time for this. We're not going to get to the Chelsea conversation, so we'll do that on the top 6 show later today. But Arsenal at the weekend, put their performance aside. The penalty they conceded, it's been actually universally slammed by pundits, ex-referees, and so we then saw Liverpool not concede a penalty yesterday for Kelleher taking out a player. They said it was a natural coming together, but they've doubled down and said that Lewis Skelly's was an outright foul, not a coming together. Or that. What do we make of those big penalty decisions this weekend? And a lot of ex-pros saying that it was ridiculous that Arsenal conceded a penalty for that. Let's try and remove the teams and the sentiment around them. Another bad weekend for the PGMOL and VAR, Potsy.
Yeah, I don't understand, if I'm honest, why we're surprised. I personally believe that they are all a shambles. I will say I did the watch along on AFTV. Me, Robbie, Laurie, and Turkish. There was kind of a split, really. I thought that Miles Lewis Skelly gave the referee a decision to make when I watched it live. Turkish agreed. Laurie thought it was a disgrace. Robbie was a little bit on the fence, and then he looked at it again a few times and thought, actually, it's mad. The foul itself is actually outside the box if you do believe it's a foul. So I don't know how it can be a penalty when you look back at it again. Both players have come together. Jack Harrison's got up and carried on playing. He's not calling for it. None of the Everton players are. And it's a bit of a strange one. The performance itself was poor from Arsenal, but obviously you didn't want to discuss that because obviously you just want to look at that individual decision. So I'm not blaming that decision as to why we didn't win the game because I thought we were awful again. But I'll say this. I personally don't really know where we go next with this. For me, what needs to happen is we need to be using technology to make the decision as best as we can, just like goal line technology does. So it's black and white. It's either in or it's over the line, right? Or it's not over the line. When you look at the automated offsides, I think that would be much better than seeing absolute idiots drawing lines on pitches. For me, I would much rather see that. And I think that it works from what I hear in other leagues better. The problem you've got is the handballs and the penalty decisions. Now, the only way that you can do this is the referee makes a decision and he goes and watches it on a screen. Nobody in his ears, nobody at whatever you call it, what's that place, Stockton Park, nobody talking to him. He has to make the decision. You don't have Harry, Frank, Brian, and Fred talking to you in your ears while you're doing it, going, "Yeah, well, sorry, Harry, Fred thinks this. Oh, John reckons it is done that, touch that." No. Don't need you talking to me. I'm going to go make a decision. I'm the ref. I'm going to go make sure I've made it right. So you look at that decision and you go, penalty. I'm going to go to the TV. No one talking my ears. I'm the referee. I'll see it and I'll make sure I've made it right. That's the only way I can see. Same with handball. Same with the other things. All the other stuff you could do technology with, brilliant. Right, I do think the goal line technology would be good if it's actually past the goal as well. So you can see if it's actually gone off the line for corners and stuff. I don't have a way of doing that, but that's the only other thing I'd say with technology. Everything else where it's opinion, that referee needs to make a decision, and it's his discretion. And he goes to the screen and he makes sure that he's happy with the decision he's blown. That is it. No more everybody talking to you. No more 8 minutes of looking at whether Sarr fouled Caicedo. No more of this crap. That is what needs to happen. And if that does not come in, then scrap the whole thing because it is ruining the game completely. That is my honest opinion. That's not me as an Arsenal fan crying about drawing to Everton because we were shocking and it was poor. When I look at that decision, I personally at the time said I think he's grabbed him and he's given the decision to the referee to make. But when you look at it again, they've both fallen down. There's not really any foul there, in my opinion. If there is, it's outside the box and it's a free kick. I've seen awful decisions go against them for Arsenal. And I think it's just really poor standard of refereeing. And we even need to look at the technology like I've suggested, or we need to look at different officiates that are officiating that come around from officials overseas, because the ones we've got are an absolute shambles. And I don't care who it is. You know, Robbie actually said to me on the watch line, "Oh, we've got Darren England. What do you think of that?" Crap. I would have said the same if it was Michael Oliver. I would have said the same if it was Gillett. I would have said the same if it was, give me any referee you want to. They're all absolutely abysmal. When you ever say, I need to now put my result on the refereeing decision, you haven't been good enough, because you're never going to get the decision you want, because they are awful. And that's my honest opinion.
Do you make anything of like the talk lately that Liverpool are top of the list on penalties awarded and bottom of the list of penalties conceded, and Arsenal have been awarded only 3 penalties, while Liverpool have been awarded 9 penalties? I saw this from some big Arsenal fans yesterday on Twitter, actually. Like, big one said, how can it be top of the list and bottom of the list? Right, the awarded and the conceded.
Do you think it's really interesting? Like, on that point, I want to throw this question back to you, Mo. Really, on what you said, Potsy. I agree. I think if you're being honest, if there was pulling, if you believe the sort of the leaning into him and holding onto the leg from Skelly was a foul, he stops doing it by the time they enter the box. So why have we not been seeing that? Equally, I still think Man United's foul on Garnacho was slightly outside the box, my gut feeling. But I still want to see the angle that shows whether it was on the line or not, because I don't trust them. The fall landing on his leg, I just don't see how it's a foul, because the only reason Lewis Skelly falls is because Harrison was stronger than him. That's why he falls down, because he's pulling him down by his arm. But at the same time, I understand why these claims are there. I just think Liverpool have had, and please, for Sam, understand where I'm coming from. Let me finish before you react. I think they've had a lucky season with decisions, not a corrupt season by decisions. So I think that you go through these. I think you go through these periods where
Terry, Sam's going to go. I can see it already.
When I mean lucky by it is, I think they've had some stonewall penalties. But I'll give you an example. I'm not saying they shouldn't have had the penalty. You know the one they got against Bournemouth a couple of weeks ago, where the Bournemouth player runs across the player, doesn't mean to, but catches his leg and he goes over, given as a penalty, cool. The other day, there's a defender going to block a Villa player, and Ollie Watkins run past the opponent, the defender, clips his foot and trips him up. He therefore can't make the block on the shot. VAR reviewed it and said it was just a natural coming together and not a foul. So my point about luck isn't that Liverpool paid anybody, isn't that Liverpool don't deserve to be where they are. Next season, Liverpool may be on the opposite end of that luck, is what I'm stating here. And I think there are swings and roundabouts. The problem is when you're an Arsenal fan, with those lists, is you feel hard done by, and you've seen Liverpool get decisions that you feel other teams wouldn't get. It doesn't help when Kelleher yesterday takes out Pereira and the PGMOL call it, forget whether you think it's a foul or not, they called it a natural coming together. How is diving at a player's feet to win the ball and missing it and taking them out a natural coming together? Like Salah and Munez, that's a natural coming together that came after it. But look, I've never felt there's a conspiracy against Arsenal. I don't. But I think that the level of refereeing needs to be called out. The same as this week, it was a disgrace that Tarkowski wasn't sent off for potentially breaking McAllister's leg. That went against Liverpool. So the idea everything goes for them is a lie, because they should have played against 10 men for the majority of that game, and they didn't. But I think we should be calling out the decisions based on poor consistency and things they say. Lying to the viewers yesterday, saying Kelleher and Pereira is a natural coming together, for me, is one of the worst decisions that I have seen all season. No one no integral person with integrity is going to say, yeah, that's a natural coming together. The PGMOL are just an absolute disgrace. VAR is not fit for purpose on any level. And this season, Arsenal feel more hard done by than Liverpool. Next season, it could be the complete opposite way round. This isn't about tribalism for me. This isn't about anything other than calling out the consistent mistakes from these individuals. I don't know how you see it, Mo. Do you see it as because David Coote said what he said, they're helping Liverpool? Or do you see this more as just a...
No, it's a consistency problem. It's not for Liverpool, and it's not against Arsenal, to be honest. It's not. Like, they don't... Like, some Arsenal fans make it as they sit in a room together, and they're like, oh, this week we're going to just be doing Arsenal, like we're going to make controversy, we're going to give decisions to Liverpool. That's not how it happens. To be honest with you, that's not how it happens. I don't think there's a conspiracy theory. I think it's just inconsistent. And I think that the referees have maybe unintentional bias sometimes, but it's not planned. There's no conspiracy. There's nothing against Arsenal. I don't think there is anything against Arsenal in specific. We have seen Liverpool get robbed of league titles before against Manchester City. Last season, we have seen one of the clearest penalties I've seen in my life. Doku and McAllister, when Mark Gay, he got a red card for something way left yesterday or a couple of days ago, got a red card for it. He didn't even give the decision, by the way, for Doku, and it's way worse.
Yeah. Did you see, by the way? Yeah, so this is what I'm saying. I'm not saying Liverpool have had some decisions go their way this year, but I don't think it's about conspiracy. Do I think some referees have agendas, individual agendas? Yes, I do. Do you know what's really interesting? I thought what Arteta said yesterday was really important. When he was asked, do you think Lewis Skelly's being targeted? He said no. Now, Arsenal fans might say, no, you've got to call it out. I think the worst thing Arsenal can do right now is start attacking referees individually. I actually think the way to combat this is to stop calling them out and making it about individuals. Call the organisation out, maybe. But I think when you start, if Arteta comes out and says Darren England hates him, I think that will make Darren England give more worse decisions against you, consciously or subconsciously. I think you're
absolutely spot on about this. And people that played sports at a high level, especially football and basketball, Sam knows this about NBA. Media plays a big part of this. Media and fan crying, and they play a big part. The referee goes to game knowing that the player is labeled as a diver. That's why Mohamed Salah had sometimes one of the toughest times in winning the right penalties, because he was just called a diver, and people ran with it, and people would not give him. And because Arsenal complain about the referees the most in the league, referees unintentionally, they don't give the calls, and it's just human. And by the way, until we get AI reffing the games, you're always going to see this, by the way.
Ola here says it's been 3 seasons now. First team, they forgot to draw the lines. I agree that Arsenal have had some things go against them in the last 3 years that you've barely seen again since. But Liverpool also. Liverpool, they didn't follow the protocol on an offside and sort of said, check complete. So Arsenal are not the only teams. Man United, this one has never been discussed. We literally had a player stand in front of our goalkeeper so we couldn't see, and Palace scored. Still not been debated to this day. It was blatant offside. There was a decision Saturday. I watched Palace Brighton. I like Palace Brighton games. Yeah. They're really good derbies. Matoma had a bit of a heavy touch. He slid in, wins the ball, and then bends his legs. He then gets booted by the Palace player. Ref gave it the other way. And I'm watching it.
I could not believe that.
I agree. And this is why I would say to Arsenal fans, I think you're right to call out decisions. I think the way you go about it, there's 2 things. I think Arsenal fans lose hearts and minds when they say there's an outright conspiracy from the PGMOL against us, because people go, that's too far, I'm not listening. Equally, every big Arsenal account does this. This weekend's referee is going to be, and they name him. Stop doing that. Stop talking about the referees individual. I'm just putting this out here as a theory, a sort of thought theory. Stop talking about the individual. Talk about the organization and how good or bad they are. Drop the conspiracy stuff and drop the calling out of individuals. Because I think what ends up happening is these referees develop an unconscious bias, or even along the lines of, oh, I need to make sure now after Arsenal fans have called me out that I'm not seen to be biased towards them, because then people will think I'm weak and I'm easily swayed. I think it might be having the opposite effect of what you want. And I'm just saying, you've called it out for 3 years, it hasn't got better. Maybe do the reverse. Does that make call out the organization, call out the inconsistencies, drop the conspiracy, drop the calling out of individual named referees, and see if you start to see an improvement. Because listen, Fergie was a master. Klopp did an amazing job 4 or 5 years ago of stopping Man United getting penalties. He did. Like, he put it out there, and the referees are like, shit, yeah, maybe you're right. Sometimes it goes for you, sometimes it goes against you. And I just don't think Arsenal's approach has been helping. But aside from Arsenal, I mean, I still not had an explanation as to why Casemiro getting kicked on the leg yesterday by Kovacic wasn't a foul. When he goes to boot the ball, misses the ball, kicks the player's leg, and it's not even, I just don't, honestly, the PGMOL, do you guys think that the lack of the poor decisions, the bad refereeing, coupled with a lot of the other things we've mentioned, do you think all of that has played a bit of a part in people being less engaged with the league this year?
100%. The people I was speaking to, an Ipswich fan on Thursday, and he's like, look, we're going down. He said, but I'm actually not enjoyed this Premier League like I thought I would. I really thought I'd enjoy the ride each time, but this VAR thing has really kind of hit him, because obviously they don't have it in the Championship. He said it's absolute pleasure. You can celebrate a goal. It doesn't ruin your celebrations. Now, you've got to remember, they're learning this for the first time in a long time. We've been like this for a few seasons. But the Ipswich fans that are screaming, going mental, are just like we were 4 years ago when they first brought it in, and we realised, why we stopped celebrating? There's no longer a goal. Brilliant. We've got to look at this for half hour now. So they've just said, look, I've not enjoyed it. And I don't think that's them being bitter, because I think they expected to go down. He certainly did. He's not a deluded Ipswich fan. And he sort of said, look, I think we're going to go down. But the VAR thing is absolutely awful at the moment. And if I'm honest with you, he said this PSR and FFP thing is potentially going to ruin the football thing as well. So I think just scrap it all and start, because it was better without it. Look, that's a debate and a different debate. But
no, I disagree with you, actually. VAR gets more than 90% decisions correct, because you will hear people moan if they miss a call because it was inside the area and it was outside, and see, I'm hard done by. I think we just need more consistency, but I think VAR has done really well.
More speed and more. I actually thought I don't know what game it was. It was a game I watched. It might have been the Spurs-Chelsea game, where it got the decisions right. Took a little bit too long on the SAR challenge, but I still think that's because they're looking at a red card. I just think they've got to get faster. And sometimes I don't know what they're looking at. We all see it as fans and go, oh, look, yeah, there was the contact, it's a foul. And then 10 minutes later, they're like, there was an offside yesterday for Spurs. Every camera angle, you could see it was offside. It took them 8 minutes to do it.
And this is the problem, Terry. It isn't about getting it right or wrong. For me, this was why I did not want it brought in, because it would slow the game down and it would take too long. And that's exactly what it did. And those that said I don't want VAR have been proven right for those reasons. If I don't want VAR because I don't care if they get it wrong, then fine, then don't have it in. And my personally, you kind of have the attitude, and people don't like it when I say this, is they're going to get stuff wrong. They're going to get stuff right for you as well. It kind of evened itself out of the way to get rid of VAR and crack on with it. I can't stand all this VAR.
Yeah, but it doesn't happen in other leagues. That it doesn't take that long in other leagues, because they have a protocol and a procedure to do it. Somehow in England it takes way longer, because I think they want to influence the game. It is very simple.
It's just we're just using old tech.
We're not ready for it though, are we? We're not.
But even the PGMOL,
if it was going to work,
the amount of times they just defend their colleague on the pitch and go, we'll go with the on-field decision. And you're like, no, that's going to cause you... That they can't look beyond the end of their nose. And it's because they don't have an outside voice that comes into them. It's so shoeboxed. I'd love to sit in that room with them and go, guys, don't back the on-field decision. You're going to get... Just on a friendly level, you're going to get cooked. Because everyone knows that's a foul.
Sorry, we don't hear from these referees. Then they should come out after the game and they should say more stuff. The only ones we hear from are the ones that are in the media who were absolutely abysmal, horrific referees, like the likes of Mike Dean, Howard Webb, Mike Riley, Dermot Gallagher, Peter Wall, and all these guys that sit there in the studios now that try and be media pundits are the worst refs of the game anyway. So why are we hearing from them?
No, mate, I hear you completely. George here says, I don't think it's corruption or inconsistency. It's quite clearly subconscious bias. The media plays a massive part in ref perception and decision making, but nobody can gaslight when they've been fleeced by refs. I will say that about Lewis Skelly. I think that the media have done this massive hit job on him being some aggressive thug who fouls a lot. And I do think that will play a part in decisions that go. I think if that was Erin Timber that made that challenge as an example of an ask. I don't think they give a penalty, but there's this weird thing. Issue is not even decisions going against us, but I feel we've been punished with the highest threshold, whereas others have had common sense applied. I think it's a great point. I think it's a great point around penalties, and we spoke about it on the video we released on Saturday evening, where we just highlighted all the times that Howard Webb and the PGMOL have said there's a massively high threshold for winning a penalty. So but then you see a Skelly decision, they go, well, they can't get involved. It's not a clear and obvious error. But it is based on your own words. If the threshold for a penalty is massively high compared to anywhere else on the pitch, and you've given a soft one, that by definition means there's been a fucking error. It's just, as you say, it's like an old boys club, and it's horrible for us to witness. It really is. But look, I want to thank everyone who's tuned in. I love today's show. Great debate with Sam and a good conversation with the boys. Absolutely loved it. Thank you to all of the super chatters. We gained over 100 new subscribers during this video. I shoot that from the United Stand community. So a big thank you to all of you. We're back live at 6 p.m. today for the Top 6 show. So make sure you are all back with us. Go and support Judge Mo on Judge Mo. Just search Judge Mo on YouTube. You'll find him. Don Hassam, very easy. Search Don Hassam and subscribe. And Man Like Dan Potts, you've got to search the 12th man. The 12th man. Go subscribe to all of their YouTube channels now. Until next time, everybody, take care. Goodbye. God bless. And I'll see you all again soon.